Chapter 73. Gravity Tower. Zhuowen's arrival caused quite a commotion in the plaza. Although Zhuowen was considered young, no one dared to underestimate him. After all, Zhuowen's deeds had caused quite a stir. There were even many juniors in the square who looked at Zhuowen with eyes full of reverence. This kid always makes us wait, haha. Looking at Zhuowen, who had finally appeared, Zhuo Xiangding laughed out loud. His eyes were filled with gratification. Upon hearing Zhuo Xiangding's words, Zhuo Dingtian, who was standing behind Zhuo Xiangding, fixed his gaze on the young man who had just appeared in the square. His cold eyes narrowed slightly. Zhuowen also did not expect that his appearance would cause such a big commotion. He shook his head and was about to enter the square when a somewhat dark and cold gaze attracted his attention. Tilting his head slightly, he saw Zhuo Tian staring at him from a secluded corner of the plaza with a sinister smile on his face. Zhuowen also returned a cold smile, following which, he went straight to the plaza and randomly chose a quiet place to wait for Zhuo Xiangding to speak. Looking at all the core disciples in the plaza, Zhuo Xiangding's face revealed a gratified smile. He then said, "Everyone should have guessed the reason for this gathering. In a month's time it will be the market battle that occurs once every 5 years. In the past few years our Zhuo family has always been at the bottom, and the number of market squares under our control has been decreasing. This old man can say bluntly that our Zhuo family might really be at the end of our rope. If we really lose this time, the Zhuo family's market square will really be reduced to nothing. Although it won't be reduced to a second-rate force like what the outside world has guessed, it will still greatly damage our Zhuo family. All of you are the elites of our Zhuo family. This old man hopes that all of you can do well in this market battle. This old man does not expect to be the champion. After all, the Wang family is too strong. However, the Chen family is slightly weaker. We have a chance to defeat them." At this point, Zhuo Xiangding looked around again and said, "Everyone knows that there is a limit to the number of spots for the market square battle. There are only 5 spots. This time, I have gathered all of you here for the spots. There is a gravity tower in the Battle Spirit Pavilion. There are 3 floors in the gravity tower. The higher the floor, the stronger the gravity. At the top of the gravity tower there are 5 brocade boxes. Inside each box, there is a 4th grade elixir and 4 3rd grade elixirs. Whoever obtains these 5 brocade boxes first will have the spot for the market battle." When Zhuo Xiangding's words came out, it immediately caused a commotion in the square. Especially when the core disciples heard that there was a 4th grade elixir, their breathing suddenly became a lot heavier. Obviously, the temptation of a 4th grade elixir was quite strong. It seems that for this market battle, grandfather really put in a lot of effort. He even took out a 4th grade elixir. Zhuowen's eyes flashed and said with some surprise. Looking at the commotion in the square, Zhuo Xiangding nodded with satisfaction. Then, he waved his right hand and said, "Juniors, follow me into the Battle Spirit Pavilion." As he spoke, Zhuo Xiangding took the lead and entered the Battle Spirit Pavilion. Naturally, many juniors followed behind him with excited expressions. Zhuowen also silently followed behind. With the energy-gathering pill, Zhuowen was not very interested in the 3rd grade elixirs. However, the 4th grade elixir aroused his interest. The Battle Spirit Pavilion occupied an extremely vast area. Within the depths of the pavilion, there was a rather large tower. The large tower had 3 levels and its appearance was ordinary. However, the powerful ripples that were emitted from the metal tower caused Zhuowen's eyes to turn somewhat solemn. The gravity tower is a middle-rank soul treasure. This is the family treasure passed down by the ancestors of the Zhuo family. Even the Wang family does not have a comparable soul treasure. Zhuo Xiang'er, who had been paying attention to Zhuowen, also noticed the doubt on his face. She hurriedly explained to him in a soft voice, "Soul treasure? Who would have thought that our Zhuo family would actually possess a soul treasure?" Zhuowen's face also revealed a surprised expression. He was not unfamiliar with soul treasures. Soul treasures were actually treasures that possessed spirituality. They were extremely powerful. If an ordinary warrior possessed a soul treasure, they could greatly increase their combat strength. Soul treasures were divided into low, middle, and high grades. In Rattan Armor City, even low grades of soul treasures were rare. Even the 1,000 Treasures Pavilion did not have any traces of soul treasures. This showed how rare soul treasures were. However, Their Zhuo family actually possessed a soul treasure. Moreover, it was a middle-grade soul treasure. Looking at the huge tower in front of him, Zhuowen finally understood why the Battle Spirit Pavilion was regarded as a forbidden area. It turned out that there was actually such a treasure hidden inside. Every floor of the gravity tower has a large platform. If anyone cannot withstand the gravity inside, you can enter the platform. The gravity tower will automatically transport you out. Alright, I'm going to activate the gravity tower. Zhuo Xiangding waved his right hand and immediately formed a complicated seal that entered the huge door on the first floor of the tower. Immediately after, there was a loud rumble and the huge door on the first floor of the tower suddenly opened. When the door opened, a few figures could not wait to rush into the tower. Zhuotian, who had been silent all this time, suddenly turned his head and grinned at Zhuowen. Zhuowen, this time the grade 4 soul treasure is mine. Next, I will let you see the results of my half a year of hard work. When the time comes, I will settle all the old and new grudges in the tower. After he finished speaking, Zhuotian no longer paid attention to Zhuowen. With a whoosh, he followed the crowd into the tower. In my opinion, your strength is still not enough, Zhuowen softly muttered. Immediately after, with a whoosh, he also turned into a shadow and entered the tower. After all the juniors entered the tower, the huge door of the tower closed. At the same time, a huge image was projected from the tower into the air. The content of the image was naturally the situation in the tower. Looking at the image in the air, Zhuo Xiangding smiled and said, I wonder who will obtain the grade 4 soul treasure? Zhuotian's strength has reached the peak of the nirvana stage. He should be the most promising one, followed by Zhuowen. In my opinion, the owner of the grade 4 soul treasure should be one of the two. Zhuo Baitian said with a faint smile. Big brother, you are wrong. After all, Tian strength has reached the peak of the nirvana stage. However, although Zhuowen is extremely talented, his cultivation should not be comparable to Tian. I think the winner this time should be Tian. Zhuo Dingtian sneered. Zhuo Dingtian's words also received the agreement of many elders. Although Zhuowen had defeated Zhuowen in the previous competition, Zhuotian's rapid improvement in cultivation had surprised them. This time, even Zhuowen might not be Zhuotian's opponent. Zhuowen's cultivation is not bad. For months ago, he was already at the peak of the soul transformation stage. Now that 4 months have passed, his cultivation is not inferior to Zhuotian's. After Zhuo Baitian's words came out, the entire place fell into silence. Then, everyone looked at Zhuo Baitian in disbelief. Big brother, you said that Zhuowen is also at the nirvana stage now? Zhuo Xiangding suddenly said with an excited expression. With Zhuowen's talent, it shouldn't be a problem for him to advance from the peak of the soul transformation stage to the nirvana stage in 4 months. I'm afraid that he is not far from the peak of the nirvana stage. Zhuo Baitian said seriously. Good. If that's the case, this time our Zhuo family has 2 nirvana stage practitioners in the younger generation. We are naturally not a match for the Wang family, but our Zhuo family is naturally not afraid of the Chen family. Zhuo Xiangding said with a loud laugh. Following Zhuo Xiangding's laughter, everyone involuntarily gathered their gazes on the image in the air. They knew that the ownership of the 4th grade elixir was probably going to be confusing again. The space inside the tower was very vast. As far as the eye could see, it was a sea of red. When Zhuowen landed on the ground, a heavy pressure suddenly hit him in the face. Now that Zhuowen's physical strength had been tempered by the beast blood, it had reached a somewhat terrifying level. Therefore, with a slight shake of his shoulder, he was able to completely offset the pressure. It's really something. It's just the first level, and the pressure is already 5 times that of the outside world. I wonder what level the pressure on the 3rd level will reach. Looking around, Zhuowen immediately discovered that many disciples were staggering under the pressure. Some of them were even lying on the ground. Due to the enormous pressure, their faces were incomparably red. This was only the performance of the disciples with lower cultivations. For Zhuoxiang Zhuo Meishue, and a few others whose cultivations were above the soul transformation stage, it was not that strenuous. With a faint smile, Zhuowen immediately flashed and disappeared before everyone's eyes under their shocked gazes. Clearly, Zhuowen's speed was somewhat inconceivable to many people. Soon, Zhuowen arrived at the entrance of the 2nd level, far ahead of everyone else. Without any hesitation, he directly rushed in. The pressure on the second level was actually more than 10 times that of the outside world. Even for Zhuowen, under this somewhat frightening pressure, it was somewhat strenuous. First heavenly layer of rampage. Traces of blood burst open on the surface of Zhuowen's body. Then, using his physical body to resist the enormous pressure, he rapidly flew forward without any reduction in speed. He advanced towards the third level like a hot knife through butter. Zhuowen's somewhat shocking speed was somewhat inconceivable to the spectators outside. One must know that even if they were to enter the gravity tower, it was unlikely that they could reach Zhuowen's frightening speed. It seems that this brat hasn't used any yuan power yet. He's just relying on the strength of his physical body to resist the gravity of the second level and continuously advance. This is somewhat amazing. As the strongest member of the Zhuo family, Zhuo Xiangding's insight was somewhat unique. With a single glance, he could tell that Zhuowen was not relying on yuan power to resist the gravity. Instead, he was using his physical body to forcefully resist the gravity and advance. When Zhuo Xiangding's words came out, the crowd immediately went into an uproar. In the gravity tower, there were quite a few people who could match Zhuowen's current speed. However, if it was just relying on their physical body, it was likely that no one here could do it. Chapter 74. Human Face Baby Ginseng. Zhuotian's speed is not weak either. He has actually reached the second level. Now, he is following closely behind Zhuowen, as expected of a peak nirvana stage practitioner. In the image, a tall figure appeared not far away from Zhuowen. This figure was covered in a golden membrane. It was the nirvana golden robe that was unique to nirvana stage practitioners. In the tower, Zhuotian's eyes were gloomy as he stared at the figure who was strolling leisurely. His heart was filled with shock. Over the past half a year, in order to prove that he could reclaim the position of the strongest person in the inner academy, he had been hiding in the Black Dragon Pavilion and training crazily day and night. All of this was so that he could step on the figure who had once defeated him. However, when the figure appeared in front of him again, he realized that there was still a gap between them. This caused the arrogant Zhuotian to be filled with dissatisfaction. Today I will definitely defeat you. I am the strongest person in the younger generation of the Zhuo family. Wang Meng clenched his fist tightly and released a beast-like roar from his throat. Soon after, a ferocious yuan power fluctuation surged out from his body like a stormy sea. After which, Wang Meng's speed suddenly increased. After entering the third level, Zhuowen acutely sensed that the gravity here had actually reached 20 times that of the outside world. Even Zhuowen could not help but feel a little pressured. The corners of Zhuowen's mouth curled as he suddenly let out a low cry. Immediately, a dense golden membrane appeared on the surface of his body. It was the Nirvana Golden Robe. The moment the Nirvana Golden Robe appeared, Zhuowen felt his entire body relax. Just as he was about to take another step forward, a somewhat ear-piercing sound of rushing wind whistled from behind him. Focusing his eyes, Zhuowen's footsteps crisscrossed as he used a strange footwork to dodge the attack behind him. Boom! A golden figure suddenly crashed onto the ground, after which, the figure looked at Zhuowen with a cold gaze. However, when he saw the Nirvana Golden Robe on Zhuowen's body, he could not help but be startled. So you have also reached the Nirvana stage. No wonder you look so confident. The person who had arrived was Zhuotian, who had been following closely behind Zhuowen. At this moment, Zhuotian's gaze was rather fearful as he looked at Zhuowen. Evidently, he did not expect that Zhuowen had actually reached the Nirvana stage. Outside the tower, everyone's gazes were gathered on the two golden human figures in the image. The entire place had become somewhat quiet. Although they were able to predict that these two people were destined to have a fierce battle within the tower, they did not expect that this battle would actually come so quickly. I wonder who will get the 4th grade spirit medicine? Zhuo Xiangding's eyes narrowed. There was a trace of expectation in the depths of his eyes. He really wanted to know which of the two most outstanding members of the Zhuo family would be stronger. Judging from their auras, both of them are at the peak of the Nirvana stage. Looks like there's really some suspense as to who this grade 4 spirit medicine belongs to. Zhuo Beitian's gaze was also somewhat expectant. However, in his heart, he was more eager to see Zhuowen obtain the 4th grade spirit medicine. Zhuo Dingtian was silent. However, his constantly flickering gaze revealed the nervousness in his heart. Evidently, at this moment he also had a trace of uncertainty. The fact that Zhuowen had also reached the peak of the nirvana stage had greatly exceeded his expectations. Zhuotian, I can clearly tell you that you are no match for me. If you don't want to suffer, it's best that you don't compete with me for the 4th grade spirit medicine. Otherwise, you will regret it later. Zhuowen's gaze was indifferent as he looked at the sinister-looking Zhuotian in front of him. There was a trace of warning in his tone. Zhuotian's ability to reach the peak of the nirvana stage was naturally out of Zhuotian's expectations. However, in his opinion, Zhuotian's strength was equivalent to Gushang's and did not pose the slightest threat to him. You are still as arrogant as ever. Both our cultivation levels are at the peak of the nirvana stage. Do you really think that I am no match for you? Perhaps it will be more convincing if we fight. With regards to Zhuowen's tone and gaze, Zhuotian was very annoyed. He clenched his fists so tightly that a crisp sound could be heard. Zhuotian suddenly let out a low roar. The nirvana golden robe on the surface of his body suddenly became extremely dense. Subsequently, a huge wave of yuan power poured out from his body. Rumble! Zhuotian's legs bounced and his entire body flew straight towards Zhuowen like a sharp arrow released from a bow. When he arrived in front of Zhuowen, he suddenly threw out a punch. The powerful force generated a strong wind that even formed a vacuum between the two of them. Zhuowen calmly looked at Zhuotian, who was attacking him. He didn't have any intention of dodging, but the surface of his body was covered in bloody lines. The ape symbol on his back let out a low roar, and the bloody lines suddenly became extremely dense. What's wrong with Zhuowen? Why isn't he dodging or fighting back? Looking at the image in the air, Zhuobaitian quietly frowned. The others outside the tower also revealed a trace of a strange expression. They all guessed that Zhuowen's brain was flooded with water. He actually allowed Zhuotian to attack without fighting back. Just when the spectators were puzzled, Zhuotian's full-strength punch had already quietly arrived. Naturally, Zhuotian also saw Zhuowen's strange behavior, and a trace of hostility flashed across his face. Since you are courting death, I will fulfill your wish, Zhuotian secretly said in his heart. The yuan power in his body surged even more violently into his fist. Then, under everyone's gaze, he ruthlessly smashed Zhuowen's chest. A dazzling brilliance flashed by, and then a figure was actually sent flying in front of everyone's eyes. When everyone's gazes gathered on the figure that was sent flying, their eyes were immediately filled with intense shock. This was because the figure that was sent flying was not Zhuowen, but the one who launched the attack. Everyone's gaze became a little strange. How is this possible? Zhuowen doesn't seem to have moved at all. How could it be that Zhuowen, who initiated the attack, was sent flying? For a moment, the spectators were unable to accept this result. Zhuotian's face was also filled with disbelief as he fell to the ground. He suddenly jumped up and once again flew towards Zhuowen. I don't believe it. Today I will definitely defeat you. Zhuotian's eyes became incomparably red. The yuan power in his body desperately gathered in his hands. Then with a strong astral wind, he ruthlessly punched Zhuowen's head. However, the result this time also shocked Zhuotian, and even a little frightened. This was because under his full-strength punch, the young man in front of him did not even turn his head and only looked at him indifferently. Are you done? If you are, then it's my turn. Zhuowen grinned, but there was a sinister glint in his smile. They saw Zhuowen suddenly grab Zhuotian's right fist. Then, his 5 fingers clenched into a fist, and a simple punch lightly landed on Zhuotian's chest. Then, to everyone's astonishment, such a light punch actually made Zhuotian spit out a mouthful of blood. His face was twisted in pain. Looking at the slowly falling Zhuotian in front of him, Zhuowen only slightly shook his head and said, I said that you are not my match. I agree with what you said before. If a person is arrogant, then he naturally has the ability to be arrogant. Unfortunately, I am that person. After speaking, Zhuowen no longer paid any attention to Zhuotian, who was lying weakly on the ground. Instead, he bounced off the ground and rushed towards the depths of the 3rd floor like an agile monkey. Compared to the calm inside the tower, the outside of the tower was in an uproar. No one expected that the originally evenly matched battle would turn into a one-sided battle. and Zhuowen had finished off Zhuotian with a simple punch. This kind of shock made everyone feel dizzy. Although Zhuowen had also defeated Zhuotian in the family competition half a year ago, it could be considered a Pyrrhic victory. Half a year had passed, and both of their cultivations had reached the peak of the nirvana stage. However, Zhuowen had only used a single punch to finish off Zhuotian even though their cultivations were on par. We have all underestimated this kid Zhuowen. This kid's strength far surpasses that of a nirvana stage practitioner. It seems like the rumor of Zhuowen fighting Wang Meng, and even injuring Wang Meng is not baseless. Zhuo Xiangding's face suddenly revealed an ecstatic smile. The stronger Zhuowen was, the greater the chance of winning the battle for the market. How could this not make the old man happy? Zhuo Beiqian's face also revealed a trace of a surprised smile. Obviously, Zhuowen's strength had greatly exceeded his expectations. However, compared to the joy of the two, Zhuo Dingtian's gaze became increasingly gloomy. Looking at the lonely figure in the image, his heart felt as if it was being twisted by a knife. His fists were also clenched tightly. Soon Zhuowen arrived at the deepest part of the third floor. What appeared in front of him was a huge square. Above the square, there were 5 balls of light suspended above. Through the balls of light, Zhuowen could recognize that there were 5 brocade boxes in the balls of light. The most conspicuous one was the ball of light in the middle. This ball of light was obviously much denser than the other 4 balls of light. Moreover, the medicinal efficacy faintly revealed from this ball of light was also much denser than the other 4 balls of light. Obviously, this ball of light contained a grade 4 elixir. Without hesitation, Zhuowen tipped his toes and swept straight towards the ball of light in the middle. However, when he approached the ball of light, there was a force that prevented Zhuowen from reaching in. However, after Zhuowen unleashed the strength of 8 dragons, this force immediately broke down. Naturally, Zhuowen was able to smoothly obtain the brocade box. When he opened the brocade box, a wave of rich medicinal efficacy suddenly spread out. A human-shaped root was lying quietly in the brocade box. However, the strange thing was that the top of the root was in the shape of a human face. Grade 4 elixir. Human-faced infant ginseng. Grandpa is really generous. Zhuowen did not expect that the grade 4 elixir that Zhuo Xiangding took out was human-faced infant ginseng. One must know that this elixir was not only helpful for cultivation, but it could also extend one's lifespan to a certain extent. It was considered to be one of the best grade 4 elixirs. Since I have obtained the elixir, it's time to go out. Zhuowen placed the brocade box into his Qingkuan bag with a flip of his hand. Then he saw a platform not far away. That platform was naturally the exit that Zhuo Xiangding had mentioned. Chapter 75. Chapter 75. A breakthrough. On the eve of the market battle outside the tower, a light pillar gradually appeared. When the light pillar disappeared, a tall and straight figure slowly appeared in front of everyone. Although Zhuo Xiangding and the others had already guessed it, they were still shocked when they saw the face of the figure. Zhuowen, good job. As expected of Xiaoyan's son, your cultivation has actually attained the peak of the rebirth realm in a short period of half a year. This has greatly exceeded grandfather's expectations. It seems that your talent is even more outstanding than your father's. Zhuo Xiangding's face was filled with joy. He gently patted Zhuowen's shoulder with his large hands, his eyes filled with emotion and anticipation. Zhuowen could feel the trembling of the old man's hands. He knew that the old man who had been silently protecting the Zhuo family had placed all the hopes of the family on him, just like how he had placed all his hopes on his father back then. Grandpa, this time, I will help my family regain the championship. I will make the Wang family spit out all the chips that they took from our Zhuo family one by one. Zhuowen said in a low and serious voice. Looking at the serious young man in front of him, Zhuo Xiangding revealed a gratified smile and said gently, Grandfather is already very satisfied that you have such a heart. But don't force yourself. You're the hope of the clan now. You can't suffer any losses. As soon as he finished speaking, another pillar of light appeared outside the tower. Following which, a gloomy Zhuotian appeared before everyone with a brocade box in his hand. Zhuotian glanced at Zhuowen and walked to Zhuo Dingtian's side without saying a word. Everyone looked at Zhuotian strangely. Anyone could understand that being defeated by the same person again and again was not a good feeling. After a period of time, many more light pillars appeared outside the tower. The owners of the remaining 3 brocade boxes naturally fell into the hands of Zhuoxiang, Zhuomeishue, and Zhuorong. At this point, the 5 people could be considered to have been officially chosen. You really got the 4th grade elixir. It seems that hateful Zhuotian has suffered a lot in your hands. Zhuoxiang had unknowingly appeared beside Zhuowen. Her beautiful eyes glanced at the brocade box in Zhuowen's hand and said with a smile. Zhuowen spread out his hands and said casually, "It's just a fluke. The 5 candidates have already been chosen. They are Zhuo1, Zhuotian, Zhuoxiang, Zhuomeishue, and Zhuorong. There is only 1 month left until the market square battle. I hope that the 5 of you can use this 1 month to prepare well. This time our Zhuo clan must not be last again." Zhuo Xiangding's gaze gathered on Zhuowen and the other 4. After giving some instructions, he waved his hand and let them go back to prepare. However, when it was time to disperse, Zhuoxiang insisted on following Zhuowen back to the Veiled Dragon Pavilion, saying that she wanted to compare notes with him. However, Zhuowen could see the craftiness in this little girl's eyes, so he righteously refused. Under Zhuowen's rejection, Zhuoxiang stomped her foot and left unwillingly. Time gradually flowed by and the date of the battle for the marketplace grew closer and closer. Due to the proximity of this grand event, Tongjia City became even more lively. The liveliness of the city had reached its peak. Numerous factions within a 100-mile radius had flocked over, and the human traffic in Tongjia City had also reached a terrifying level. The market battle was set to be held in the center of Rattan Armor City at the God Stone Plaza. This was the most magnificent building in Rattan Armor City, and it occupied an extremely large area. This plaza often held deathmatch competitions, so it was naturally the most suitable place for the market battle to be held. The pitch-black curtain of night gradually fell. The originally noisy Rattan Armor City was very quiet. In this quiet night, the atmosphere in the Zhuo family was very heavy because tomorrow was the official start of the Battle of the Market. On the top floor of the Battle Spirit Pavilion, Zhuo Xiangding's gaze was rather complicated as he stared at a plaza not far from the Zhuo family. That plaza was the Godstone Plaza in the center of Rattan Armor City. It was also the location where the market battle would be held tomorrow. Back then, Xiaotian, this child, defeated all the younger generation in Rattan Armor City by himself. In the end, he valiantly took the first place in the market battle. I wonder if Zhuowen will be able to continue his father's legend tomorrow? In the Hidden Dragon Pavilion, the youth who was sitting cross-legged suddenly opened his eyes. He saw a Xiaohei dog with a long dragon tail lazily crossing its little paws. It said somewhat lazily, "Kid, after accumulating for more than a month, it's finally time to explode." Zhuowen nodded slightly and said with a faint smile, "I've delayed long enough. It's time to break through to the Void realm." As he spoke, Zhuowen took out a light blue elixir from his Qingkuan bag. On the surface of the elixir, there were traces of ice fragments, which looked quite strange. Fortunately, when I refined the near-void elixir for Han Shui that day, I refined a few extra for storage. Today it finally comes in handy. Looking at the elixir in his hand, Zhuowen's eyes had a trace of expectation. Near-void elixir? This thing will indeed be of great help to you when you break through to the Void realm. Xiaohei rubbed its chin and said with a smile. With a slight smile, Zhuowen swallowed the elixir without hesitation. As soon as the elixir entered his mouth, a vigorous cold air burst out from the elixir. This somewhat stinging cold air was guided by Zhuowen into his dantian, and then spread to the meridians in his body under the effect of his dantian. Under the erosion of this cold air, crystal-clear ice fragments began to appear on Zhuowen's hair all over his body. In the early morning, when the first ray of sunlight penetrated through the gaps between the leaves and entered the window, a rather thin figure was exposed under the dazzling sunlight like an old monk in meditation. However, the strange thing was that this figure's entire body was actually covered by ice crystals. A somewhat terrifying cold air was slowly released from these ice crystals. Crack! A crisp sound suddenly rang out and a crack began to appear from the figure's head. Then this crack continued to expand like crazy branches until it reached the figure's chest. Finally, with a clatter, it suddenly enveloped the figure like a spider web. Then pieces of ice fell down like hailstones, revealing a rather handsome face. It was Zhuowen. Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes, and a glint of light burst out from his eyes. Immediately after, he stretched out his right hand and pinched the air slightly. Surging cold air immediately burst out from his body, and the bed he was sitting on instantly turned into a bed of ice, appearing smooth and shiny. I finally reached the Void Realm. Although I haven't reached the level of condensing the void armor, I can feel that my strength has improved a lot compared to before. Now, even if I meet the hemp-clothed old man, I can still defeat him without relying on Xiao Hei's strength. Pinching his hands, Zhuowen looked at the old man and said with a laugh, "Although you have just reached the Void Realm, your real battle strength is not weaker than a warrior at the first level of the Void Realm. Even a warrior at the second level of the Void Realm can't defeat you. But boy, if your cultivation reaches the first level of the Void Realm and you condense the void armor with the Ice Demon Pearl, you will be almost invincible in the Void Realm." At this time, Xiao Hei also flashed out from between Zhuowen's eyebrows. Looking at the dense cold air that was spreading out from Zhuowen's body, he was a little surprised. "You mean that if I reach the first level of the Void Realm and condense the void armor with the Ice Demon Pearl, I will be invincible in the Void Realm? Is it so exaggerated?" Zhuowen looked at Xiao Hei with disbelief and said, "Boy, don't doubt me. You don't know how rare the mysterious ice pool is. Even warriors at the Yang Void Realm don't dare to touch the cold air of this ice pool. You can see how strong the cold air is. Once you can condense the cold air into your void armor, even warriors at the Yang Void Realm will have a headache, let alone warriors at the Void Realm." Xiao Hei crossed her little claws and looked at Zhuowen with disdain. Hearing this, Zhuowen's face suddenly lit up and said, "It seems that it is not a loss to get the Ice Demon Pearl. When my cultivation reaches the first level of the Void Realm, I will be qualified to condense the void armor. At that time, I won't even be afraid of warriors at the 9th level of the Void Realm." Boy, it's too early for you to be happy. Although the void armor condensed by the cold air of the Ice Demon Pearl is very powerful, the risk is not small. If you don't control it well, you may even lose your life, Xiao Hei said with a sneer. Hearing these words, the joy on Zhuowen's face immediately receded like a receding tide. He shrugged his shoulders and looked at Xiao Hei as he said, "From what you have said, you should have a way to minimize that risk, right?" "Of course I have a way, but it needs to be combined with some medicine. When your cultivation reaches the first level of the Void Realm, I will teach you. Now you should prepare for the market square battle." As soon as Xiao Hei finished speaking, someone knocked on Zhuowen's door. Then Lu Tao's respectful voice slowly sounded. "Young master, the market square battle is today. The master wants you to gather there." "I know. You can leave now." After sending Lu Tao away, Zhuowen looked at the direction of the Godstone Square through the window and muttered to himself, "Market square battle? This time, the Wang family's invincible legend may come to an end." In a certain pavilion of the Wang family, a young figure slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with a dense chill as he looked in the direction of the Divine Stone Square. The corners of his mouth parted to reveal a somewhat ugly smile as he said, "It's finally about to begin. Zhuowen, I want to see who will support you this time around." Chapter 76. The Battle of the City Square. At the center of Rattan Armor City, the Godstone Plaza was bustling with activity. Many factions had gathered around the plaza, hoping to catch a glimpse of the three great clans. In the center of the Godstone Plaza, there were 5 huge stone platforms. The platforms were made of blue stone slabs and looked rather spectacular. At the 4 corners of the Godstone Plaza, there was a wide platform with many people crowding around it. On one of the platforms, Zhuowen stood beside Zhuoxiangding. His gaze involuntarily swept across the crowd outside the plaza, and he couldn't help but click his tongue. The liveliness today had greatly exceeded Zhuowen's expectations. This platform belonged to the Zhuo family, and was more than 10 meters tall. From this platform, one could have a panoramic view of the entire plaza. The other 3 platforms belonged to the Wang family, the Chun family, and the City Lord's Mansion. The City Lord's Mansion's platform was 20 meters tall, which was twice the height of the 3 great clans. Just from the arrangement of the stone platforms, the City Lord's Mansion's status and influence were clearly higher than the 3 great clans. This time, the City Lord's Mansion's main purpose was to act as a referee, and would not participate in the battle between the three great clans. On the city lord's mansion's platform, Zhuowen saw a few familiar faces. Among them, Master Tsongmu and the city lord's daughter, Gu Yu, waved at him as a form of greeting. However, behind the two of them, Zhuowen also saw Gu Shang, whose face was filled with resentment. Zhuowen didn't care about Gu Shang. Although Gu Yu had reminded him that this person's background in the city lord's mansion was not low, Zhuowen had Master Tsongmu's support, so he wasn't afraid of Gu Shang. On the city lord's mansion's platform, other than the two juniors, Gu Yu and Gu Shang, Zhuowen even sensed a few middle-aged men with powerful auras sitting on the platform. Clearly, their status in the city lord's mansion was quite high. Just as Zhuowen was about to withdraw his gaze, a cold gaze attracted Zhuowen's attention. Turning his head, he immediately saw Wang Meng, who was on the Wang family's platform, staring viciously at Zhuowen. Wang Meng's lips moved slightly as a cold smile appeared on his face. I hope the Zhou family can defeat the Chen family. When the time comes, I will personally beat the crap out of the Zhou family. From the movement of Wang Meng's lips, Zhuowen was able to decipher what Wang Meng was trying to convey. Zhuowen didn't care about Wang Meng's provocative words. He just tilted his head and ignored Wang Meng's provocation. Big brother, it seems like this bastard is still as arrogant as before. When the battle for the marketplace begins, I'm afraid that we will have to teach him a lesson. Standing beside Wang Meng, Wang Zheng's eyes were cold as he glanced at Zhuowen before he sinisterly said, Of course we will teach them a lesson. However, I'm afraid that the Zhou family is not even as strong as the Chen family. I'm afraid that they won't even have the chance to fight with our Wang family. Wang Meng's eyes flickered as he spoke. That makes sense. I hope that they will be able to last until the end when they fight with the Chen family. Otherwise it will be too boring. Wang Zheng indifferently said. On the Zhou family platform, Zhuo Xiangding lowered his head and said to Zhuowen and the other four, Since the Wang family was the champion in the previous competition, there is no need for them to participate in the first round. Instead, our Zhou family will fight with the Chen family. Only the winner will have the qualifications to challenge the Wang family. I hope that you will perform well and try to defeat the Chen family. Isn't this too unfair? The Wang family actually doesn't need to participate in the first round. When our Zhou family fights with the Chen family, we will be exhausted. Won't we be at a disadvantage when we fight with the Wang family? Zhuo Xiang was somewhat dissatisfied when she heard this. This is the rule set in every competition for the marketplace. We have no choice but to abide by it. After all, the champion always has some privileges. This old man also knows that defeating the Wang family is as difficult as ascending to the heavens, so I won't ask for much. I only hope that you can defeat the Chen family and prevent our Zhou family from being at the bottom again. There was a trace of helplessness on Zhuo Xiangding's old face. It was obvious that the old man was also very dissatisfied with the rules of the marketplace competition. However, this was after all a rule set by the three great families. The three great families could not violate it. No wonder the champion of every competition is the Wang family. This rule is really too advantageous for the Wang family. Grandpa, didn't you say that our Zhou family had also won the marketplace competition before? With such a rule, how did our Zhou family win the championship back then? Zhuo Xiang curled her lips and looked at Zhuo Xiangding curiously. Zhuo Xiang's words immediately aroused the interest of the other juniors. They all stared at Zhuo Xiangding with hopeful eyes. Actually, that victory was all thanks to one person, and that person was our Zhuo family's former genius, Zhuo Xiaotian. At this moment, Zhuo Baitian, who was standing beside Zhuo Xiangding, suddenly rubbed Zhuo Xiang's head and said with a faint smile. When these words came out, the other juniors couldn't help but look at Zhuo Xiaotian, who was standing beside Zhuo Xiangding without saying a word. They knew that Zhuo Owen was Zhuo Xiaotian's father. They didn't expect that Zhuo Xiaotian was already abnormal enough, but his father was also abnormal. Clenching his fists tightly, Zhuowen thought to himself, one day I will find my father. I will also not let the Blue Dragon Hall go. Just as everyone was in a state of shock, a somewhat old figure suddenly swept out from the platform where the city lord's mansion was located. The figure lightly tapped the ground and stopped in the middle of the Godstone Plaza. It was an old man with white hair and beard. His pair of turbid eyes would occasionally burst out with a dazzling light, indicating that this old man was not ordinary. The juniors of the Chan family and the Zhou family stepped forward. A vigorous voice fueled by yuan power suddenly spread out in all directions from the old man's mouth, allowing everyone in the Godstone Plaza to hear it clearly. As soon as the old man's words came out, the crowd outside the Godstone Plaza suddenly became noisy. Obviously, they knew that the battle for the market had officially begun. "You guys follow behind me. I will escort you to the plaza." After hearing the old man's voice, Zhuo Xiangding waved his sleeve. A surge of yuan power immediately lifted Zhuowen and the others up. Then, Zhuo Xiangding led the way, bringing Zhuowen and the others to the center of the plaza. At the same time, on the platform where the Chun family was located, an old man with white hair on his temples also brought the juniors of the Chan family to the plaza. This old man's eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. When he stared at others, he always had the illusion that he was staring at prey. Zhuowen knew that this old man should be the head of the Chan family, Chan Sheng. It was said that this person's personality was quite strange and temperamental. "Head of the Zhuo family, long time no see. It seems that your cultivation has improved quite a bit." Chan Sheng's sharp eyes stared at Zhuo Xiangding, then said with a fake smile. Zhuo Xiangding cupped his hands and said with a faint smile, "Head of the Chun family is also not bad. It seems that you have been cultivating quite diligently recently." You flatter me." Chan Sheng said a few perfunctory words. Then his sharp eyes turned to Zhuowen, and a trace of coldness surged in the depths of his eyes. This must be the Zhuo family's junior Zhuowen, who has been the talk of the town in Rattan Armor City recently. His talent is indeed not bad, but he is a little arrogant. You should know that people who are too arrogant do not have a good ending. Narrowing his eyes, Zhuowen could feel the faint killing intent from Chan Sheng. Obviously, this old man was still holding a grudge against him for beating up Chan Ting last time. Chapter 77. Chapter 77. Chantande. Zhuowen is a member of our Zhuo family. I don't think it's up to family head Chen to meddle in other people's business. Zhuo Xiangding snorted when he noticed the cold glint in Chan Sheng's eyes. That may be the case, but what this old man said just now is merely a piece of advice from a senior to a junior. I don't want to die without knowing why. Chan Sheng said in a strange and cold voice. "Old man, are you threatening me?" Zhuo Xiangding glared at him and said coldly. The old man sent by the city lord's mansion glanced indifferently at the two people in front of him who were at loggerheads. He said indifferently, "The battle for the market is about to begin. If the two of you have any grudges, please wait until after the battle." Zhuo Xiangding and Chan Sheng snorted coldly. Then they each gave a few instructions to their juniors. After that, they urged their yuan qi and flew back to the platform. The old man indifferently looked at Zhuo Xiangding and Yi Shiwen. Then, he waved his right hand and a circle of light gradually appeared in his hand. Then, 10 light spots shot out from the circle of light towards the 10 participating disciples in the square. The speck of light stayed in Zhuo Wen's palm like a firefly. Then, the speck of light in his palm suddenly burst forth with a thin ray of light. Then, this ray of light shot towards Chan Tong-er's hand. "Zhuowen, your opponent is Chan Tong-er, you have to be careful. I heard that she reached the Yin Void Realm a month ago." Looking at the light in Zhuowen's hand, Zhuo Xiang'er frowned slightly. She didn't expect that Zhuowen would actually draw Chan Tong-er, the strongest member of the Chan family. On the opposite side, Chan Tong-er had obviously also discovered that her opponent was Zhuowen. A faint smile immediately appeared on her pretty face. She had a confident expression on her face. "Yes, however, you have to be careful. Your opponent seems to be Chan Ting." Zhuowen smiled at Zhuo Xiang'er and said gently, "I will." Zhuo Xiang'er smiled sweetly. On the platform, Zhuo Xiangding and Zhuo Baitian also saw Chan Tong-er and Zhuo Xiangding, who were connected by the light, and their eyes could not help but shrink. Zhuo Baitian said with a wry smile, "I didn't expect that the strongest warriors of the two families would meet. I heard that Chan Tong-er has already advanced to the Yin Void Realm. I wonder if Zhuo can defeat Chan Tong-er with his cultivation at the peak of the Nirvana realm? The other 4 youngsters have a 50% chance of winning. The key lies in the battle between these 2 youngsters. I hope Zhuowen can create another miracle," Zhuo Xiangding said with a sigh. In the distance, Wang Meng looked at Zhuowen's back with some regret. He said indifferently, I didn't think that this fellow would meet Chan Tong. Looks like I won't have the chance to teach this bastard a lesson. Since you have chosen your opponents, go to your respective arenas. The old man glanced at them and said in a clear voice. As soon as the old man finished speaking, Zhuowen tapped his toes and landed on a stone platform that was closer to the arena. He then raised his head and fixed his eyes on Chan Tong. Chan Tong raised her head slightly and smiled sweetly. She tapped her toes and with a whoosh, she appeared on Zhuowen's platform. The old man glanced at the arena and said indifferently, since everyone is here, let's start the battle. Boom! Just as the old man finished speaking, vigorous Yuanli immediately surged out from the square. On the 4 stone platforms there were people fighting each other. The battle had instantly begun. The opening of the battle also caused the noisy atmosphere outside the square to immediately quiet down. Countless pairs of eyes quietly gathered on the square. After which, their gazes shifted and paused on the last stone platform. The 2 people on this stone platform did not show any signs of fighting. Zhuowen, what a coincidence. We actually meet again. Chan Tong's beautiful eyes swept across the other 4 arenas and said with a fake smile, it is indeed quite a coincidence. Moreover, you don't seem to be fighting. Looks like we have the same idea. Zhuowen casually cupped his hands and said indifferently. He knew that Chan Tong wanted to wait for the other 4 battles to end. You really think highly of yourself. The reason why I want to wait for their battles to end is because I don't want to finish you off so early. When only you and I are left in the square, you will feel the frustration of being defeated in front of so many people. This is my revenge for hitting my sister without permission. After saying this, Chan Tong did not say anything else. She proudly placed her hands behind her back and a cold arc appeared at the corner of her mouth. Zhuowen shook his head. He did not agree with Chan Tong's blind confidence. Perhaps when the time came for a real battle, Zhuowen believed that he would be able to strip this girl of her confidence. Time gradually passed as the 2 of them faced each other in this strange standoff. The battles in the other 4 places also gradually came to an end. Bang bang! 2 muffled groans rang out at almost the same time. Then, everyone saw 2 figures fly out from the stage in a somewhat miserable state. Immediately, an uproar sounded outside the square. Zhuo family Zhuotian wins. Chun family Chun Hui wins. At the same time as the 2 figures were sent flying, the other 2 battles had also ended. 2 more figures were sent flying from the battleground. The old man indifferently swept a glance at the other 2 figures that flew out. With a shake of his sleeve, a vigorous voice once again spread throughout the square. Zhuo family Zhuo Xianger wins. Chun family Chun Xiang wins. Swoosh swoosh. As soon as the old man's voice fell, everyone's eyes converged on the last stone platform. They knew that the 2 families had fought to a draw so far, and the key to victory lay in the 2 figures on the stone platform who had yet to make a move. Zhuo Meishue and Zhuo Rong returned to the platform with pale faces. This time they had tried their best. However, their strength was too low. They were only at the initial stage of the soul transformation realm. Even if they used all their strength, it was useless. As expected, the key to this battle is still Zhuowen. However, this is obviously a little unfair. Zhuowen's cultivation is only at the peak of the Nirvana realm, while Chan Tong has already entered the Yin Void realm. The gap between the 2 of them is too big. Zhuo Xiangding looked at the last stone platform with a slightly worried gaze. Zhuo Xiang gently bit her red lips with her pearly white teeth. Her beautiful eyes were filled with complex emotions as she gazed at the tall and straight figure on the stone platform. She thought to herself, Zhuowen, don't lose. As for the silent Zhuotian, there was a hint of schadenfreude in his eyes. Because of the deep grudge between him and Zhuowen, he couldn't wait for Zhuowen to lose. In this way, Zhuowen's reputation in the Zhuo family would inevitably plummet because of this battle. Under the gazes of so many people, the 2 people on the stone platform finally moved. Surging Yuanli spread out from the stone platform like a tide. The Yuanli squeezed the air and produced a low buzzing sound. It was soul-stirring. Bang! A cold light flashed in Chan Tong's eyes. She tapped the ground with the tip of her foot and suddenly turned into a residual shadow. She was as fast as a cunning rabbit as she swept toward Zhuowen. It was as if she had disappeared into thin air. Looking at the disappearing figure in front of him, Zhuowen didn't reveal any trace of panic on his face. Instead, he activated his Yuanli and circulated it around his body. His eyes slightly focused and his body strangely tilted to one side. Rip! A jade-like hand that was like an ice crystal and filled with a dense chill whistled past Zhuowen's ear. It brought about a strong wind that tore through the air and produced an ear-piercing sound. Chi! Zhuowen's ears twitched slightly. The moment the wind blew past, Zhuowen raised his hand and turned his palm into a claw, grabbing onto her wrist. His shoulder suddenly tilted and his arm shook. Surging elemental energy immediately surged out. At the same time, a powerful force suddenly flung the beautiful figure behind Zhuowen away. She then fiercely smashed into the ground. Bang! But this figure was extremely nimble. Her other jade-like hand lightly tapped the ground, and a strand of chilly origin energy surged out from her body, causing the ground to instantly shatter into pieces. At the instant her jade-like hand touched the ground, she spun her body, and her legs were like shooting stars that drew out a fierce arc as they shot directly towards the space between Zhuowen's brows. Boom! Zhuowen was neither hurried nor slow. The 5 fingers of his right hand tightly clenched into a fist and suddenly blasted out. It directly collided with the pair of somewhat slender long legs. Wild and violent energy erupted. This fist completely blocked the formidable kick wind. At the same time, Zhuowen's right leg, which had been accumulating power, suddenly shot out like a spring. It was like a blade as it shot towards the throat of the figure. Boom! Just as the leg wind was about to reach Chen Tong-er's throat, the latter's pretty face revealed a trace of ruthlessness. She lightly patted with her right palm, and a surge of cold air immediately patted into the swift and fierce leg wind. The dense cold air also caused the leg wind to slow down. Chen Tong-er took advantage of this small gap and suddenly flipped backwards. The tip of her foot tapped on the ground and stabilized her body. However, a trace of seriousness surfaced on her pretty face. The surroundings of the square were also in an uproar because of the instantaneous confrontation between the two. The previous exchange between the two of them was ruthless and aimed directly at the vital points. If one of them had been slower by a beat, the outcome would have been fatal. This kind of life-and-death fight caused many people's blood to boil. Phew! On the platform, the group of people from the Zhuo family, who were originally nervously watching, simultaneously breathed a sigh of relief. Looking at the situation, Zhuowen's strength was indeed powerful enough. Even when facing Chen Tong-er, who was at the envoyed stage, he did not fall into a disadvantageous position. Bang! On the platform where the Chen family was located, Chen Sheng suddenly slammed the table. His gaze was rather gloomy as he looked at the tall figure on the stone platform in the square. He had received news that Zhuowen's cultivation was only at the nirvana stage, which was one level lower than Chen Tong-er's. However, even so, in the previous exchange, not only did Chen Tong-er not gain the slightest advantage, but they were evenly matched, which made him feel ashamed. Behind her, Chen Ting's eyes were also dull as she stared at the figure in the arena. Traces of shock and disbelief gradually rose in her beautiful eyes. She did not expect that her elder sister, whom she had always admired, would actually be unable to take down that hateful Zhuo. This huge difference caused Chen Ting to be at a loss for what to do for a moment. As expected, you have some skills. However, the tense situation between us ends here. In a while I will use my full strength. Chen Tong-er's gaze was solemn as she looked at the figure in front of her. Immediately, a surge of cold air suddenly surged out from her body. The cold air spread out and even the ground gradually froze. Chen Tong-er's all-out attack immediately attracted everyone's attention. Then many people's expressions changed slightly when they felt the cold air. As expected, Chen Tong-er has reached the envoyed stage. This kind of cold air is extremely effective against nirvana stage warriors. It seems that Zhuowen will suffer a loss. At this moment, Zhuo Xiangding's expression was quite ugly. As soon as he finished speaking, the other members of the Zhuo family behind him also sighed slightly. Although they knew that Zhuowen's strength was far beyond the nirvana stage, the gap between the nirvana stage and the envoyed stage was as huge as a chasm. Even if Zhuowen could easily defeat a warrior at the peak of the Nirvana stage, it was unlikely that he could defeat a warrior at the Yin Void stage. Just as everyone was sighing, an uproar suddenly broke out in the square, which immediately attracted their attention. However, when they focused their gazes on the square, their faces all froze in the square. Zhuowen, who was facing Chen Tong'er from a distance, began to emit a terrifying cold air. This cold air even formed an ice and snow domain within 3 meters of him. Bang! Xue Xiangding directly crushed the teacup in his hand and stared blankly at the tall figure shrouded in cold air. Chapter 78. Blood Python Ice Soul Palm. The stone platform in the square seemed to have turned into a world of ice and snow at this moment. Countless cold air mixed with ice fragments swept across the square like a cold current from the deep sea. At the same time, the temperature dropped to an extremely horrifying level. Many weak warriors even began to shiver. An uproar erupted from the square as they sensed the dense cold air. Everyone's gazes gathered on the two figures on the square. The strength that the two of them had displayed had already caused some people to feel a little fearful. The Yin Void Realm. It was a crucial step for all warriors to become experts. It was the realm that all warriors who had not reached the Yin Void Realm dreamed of. Now the two juniors were actually able to reach a realm that many people could not reach in their lifetime. This made the spectators outside the square click their tongues in amazement. One of them was only 15 or 16 years old. Crack! On the platform of the Chens, Chen Sheng clenched his fists. Because he used too much strength, the back of his hand was pale and blue veins were protruding. How is this possible? How could the little bastard of the Zhuo family also reach the Yin Void Realm? He is 3 or 4 years younger than Tong-er, but his cultivation is already on par with hers? Chen Sheng's eyes slightly bulged. His tone was full of shock and disbelief. Behind him, Chen Ting's jade-like hand had long since covered her cherry lips. The only part of her eyes that could be seen was also absent-minded. She still remembered that half a year ago, Zhuo Wen's cultivation was similar to hers, at the soul transformation realm. Now, he had actually far surpassed her, and had already reached the height of her elder sister. On the platform of the Wang family, Wang Meng, who was originally leisurely drinking tea, suddenly shook his hand and spilled a lot of tea. I didn't expect that bastard to also reach the Yin Void Realm. It seems that the outcome of the battle will be difficult to predict. Looking at the figure in the square, Wang Meng's eyes became gloomy. Even Wang Zheng, who was sitting beside him, became silent. Compared to the gloomy atmosphere of the two families, the platform where the Zhuo family was located was full of exclamations. Then the exclamations turned into intense joy. Grandmaster Kuraki, it seems like you've chosen a good disciple. This child's martial talent is truly somewhat terrifying. On the platform, Gu Yu's beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of splendor as her cherry lips slightly moved as she spoke. His martial talent is indeed not bad, but this old man took this kid as a disciple not because of his martial talent, but because of his spiritual power talent. This kid's spiritual force talent is even more terrifying than his martial talent. Soon after, at the end of the trajectory, it violently collided with the ice palm with a loud rumble. Boom! When the fists and feet collided, a thunder-like roar spread out. The air billows created by the strong force spread out in all directions like ripples in the water. With a cracking sound, a crack appeared on the ground of the huge stone platform made of bluestone. It spread out in all directions like a spider web. A muffled groan sounded, following which, a rather eye-catching figure continuously retreated under everyone's shocked gazes. In the end, her feet stomped on the ground and she barely managed to stop her footsteps at the edge of the stone platform. There were already 2 deep depressions in the ground in front of her. Those were the marks that were created when she retreated. This beautiful figure was none other than Chen Tong'er. At this moment, Chen Tong'er's chest was heaving up and down. Fine beads of sweat slowly flowed down from her forehead. She turned around and looked at the nearby platform. She knew that she had almost lost. However, compared to this little bit of luck, she was more shocked by the figure standing in the center of the stone platform like an iron pillar. Under the impact, even she had retreated more than 10 steps and almost fell out of the stone platform. However, the figure was as motionless as a rock. This guy has just entered the Yin Void Realm. How can he be so powerful? Even my sister is at a disadvantage. Chun Ting could no longer hide the surprise in her heart, and could not help but exclaim. Chun Shang's expression gradually darkened. There was a trace of shock in his heart. This time around, the Zhua clan had truly produced an incredible genius. He possessed such strength at such a young age. If he continued to develop at this rate, it was likely that even Wang Meng from the Wang clan would be surpassed by him. Chun Tong'er, you must be clear about the gap between you and me. I think you don't need to make a final struggle. Light footsteps sounded on the stone platform. Then a tall and thin figure slowly appeared in front of Chun Tong. Chun Tong bit her red lips with a determined look in her eyes. She said, "The battle is not over yet. It's too early to say this." Looking at Zhuo, Chun Tong'er sighed. Then she pointed her 10 fingers together. Dark red blood flowed from her fingertips into her palms, forming a complicated pattern in her palms. What's that? Tong'er actually wants to use that move. It's a life-saving secret skill that consumes a lot of essence blood. Looking at the pattern in Chun Tong'er's palms, Chun Shang, who was on the platform, narrowed his eyes and revealed a trace of worry on his face. Zhuowen, I actually don't want to use this secret skill. Once I use this secret skill, I will not stop until I see blood. If you are unluckily killed by this move, don't blame me. Chun Tong'er looked at Zhuowen, who was not far away, with a trace of ferocity on her beautiful face. Obviously, this secret skill was a heavy burden on her. At this moment, her palms suddenly emitted a somewhat terrifying blood-red light. The pattern in her palms began to gradually wriggle as if it was alive. It looked extremely strange. Blood Python Ice Soul Palm. A suppressed low roar sounded out from Chun Tong'er's mouth, and then the origin energy and cold energy within her body surged violently like boiling water. After that, they converged behind her, and it wasn't long before a blood-red python with a waist as thick as a water bucket condensed into form behind Chun Tong. The blood-red python hissed, revealing its sharp teeth that were like daggers that were suffused with a cold light. It made people shudder. Within the blood-red python's body, 2 forces of cold qi and yuan power intertwined. At this moment, it was as if the 2 different forces had fused together. It's actually the blood python Ice Soul Palm. The Chun family has really invested a lot in order to win this time. Looking at the blood-red python behind Chun Tong'er, Zhuo Xiangding's face suddenly turned green and white. It was extremely ugly. This armor skill is the Chun family's most precious treasure. It is said that it forcibly uses some kind of secret skill to fuse the yuan power and cold qi in the body together to explode with a powerful force. However, the side effects are quite big. This little girl, Chun Tong'er, has some courage. She is actually willing to use this very dangerous armor skill. I just don't know if Zhuowen can withstand such a terrifying attack. At this moment, Zhuo Beitian's face also became very solemn. There was also a trace of worry in his eyes. Chapter 79. 9-layered wave palm. The blood-red giant python was over 300 meters long. Its body was covered with blood-red scales that glowed with a dark red cold light. Its huge body almost occupied the entire Godstone square. Waves of strange energy fluctuations were emitted from its body. The appearance of the giant python immediately caused an uproar inside and outside the square. Many sharp-eyed people could see that the energy contained in the giant python was far beyond their imagination. Even a martial artist at the first level of the Void stage would be afraid of this kind of energy fluctuation. I didn't expect Chun Tong'er to use such a terrifying secret skill. I wonder if Zhuowen can block this move? It's unlikely. I can feel that the power of this secret skill is far beyond that of an ordinary warrior at the Void stage. Even a warrior at the first level of the Void stage would be in trouble if he took this move directly. Although Zhuowen is very talented, he has just reached the Void stage. I'm afraid it will be difficult for him to block this move. Alas! What a pity. The Zhuo family was so close to winning this battle. I didn't expect the Chun family to have such a terrifying secret skill. It seems that the Zhuo family will be at the bottom again in this year's Market Square battle. Noisy discussions gradually sounded outside the plaza. The topic of discussion was naturally the 2 people who were facing each other on the stone platform. Zhuowen, The destructive power of the blood python ice soul palm is too strong. Even I can't control it. It's not too late for you to surrender now. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that you won't be in danger after using this move. Bean-sized beads of sweat trickled down Chen Tong-er's forehead. Her pretty face was pale, but she still warned him. With a smile, Zhuowen didn't stop because of Chen Tong-er's warning. Instead, he slowly walked toward Chen Tong-er as if he was taking a stroll in the park. His face was filled with a peaceful smile. I really want to try the power of your move. As for surrendering, it's just a pipe dream for me. Gently biting her red lips, Chen Tong-er's gaze was somewhat complicated as she looked at the youth in front of her with a calm expression. This youth didn't seem to know what nervousness and fear were from the very beginning, but he had always surprised her from the very beginning. Since you said so, don't blame me for being merciless. Chen Tong-er's eyes suddenly turned cold. She moved her hands and formed some obscure seals. The blood-red pattern in her palm also wriggled violently in an instant, as if something was about to come out. Finally, a blood-red ray of light shot from her palm into the blood-red python behind her. After being stimulated by this bloodline, the eyes of the blood-red giant python immediately turned blood-red. With a roar, it actually rushed straight towards Zhuowen. Its huge mouth was lined with rows of sharp teeth that were suffused with a cold light. A large stench of blood also assaulted Zhuowen's face. Looking at the blood-colored giant python that was getting closer and closer, Zhuowen's gaze also slightly condensed. Then, the palms of both his hands suddenly turned into a somewhat strange trajectory in front of him. Suddenly, a strong ice-cold aura gathered in his hands. 9 overlapping wave palms. A low roar was emitted from his throat, following which, his palms suddenly struck out like endless waves. Surging yuan power also surged out from his palms. Crash. As soon as his palms struck out, the area in front of Zhuowen instantly turned into an endless ocean. In the depths of the ocean, waves that were like ancient fierce beasts continuously attacked the blood-red giant python that was rushing straight towards him. 9 overlapping wave palms was a low-level armor technique. Its power was very impressive. Zhuowen had obtained it from Wang Ming's storage bag. In the past half a year, Zhuowen had also become quite proficient in this armor technique. This palm technique emphasized on softness to toughness. The key was a kind of ingenuity. It used a seemingly soft attacking method to neutralize the enemy's attack. Moreover, the waves were stacked one after another. With each stack, the power would multiply. If it was stacked to the 9th stack, its power would be comparable to a peak Earth-level armor technique. Bang! On the Wang family's platform, the Wang family head, Wang Yuanxing, was drinking tea with a solemn expression. However, when he saw that Zhuowen had actually used their Wang family's famous armor technique, his right hand suddenly clenched, causing the teacup to shatter. His gaze was somewhat gloomy as he looked at Zhuowen. Looking at Wang Yuanxing's somewhat solemn expression, Wang Ming immediately lowered his head. His complexion also became somewhat pale. He knew that the matter of him losing his family's armor technique had finally been revealed. Originally, he still had a fluke mentality, thinking that Zhuowen would not use 9 overlapping wave palms in the market battle. However, now it seemed that it was all wishful thinking. However, this also caused Wang Ming's hatred towards Zhuowen to deepen. It was likely that he could not wait to kill Zhuowen right now. Taking a deep breath, Wang Yuanxing indifferently said, "Zhuowen is not simple. I'm afraid that he can defeat the Chan family. In the second round, if you encounter him, do not hold back. He must not be allowed to live." "Father, I understand." Wang Ming gently wiped away the cold sweat on his forehead. He knew that Wang Yuanxing said this to give him a chance to make up for his mistakes. Lightly sighing, Wang Ming's gaze towards the youth on the stone platform became even colder. At this moment, the blood-colored python that was hundreds of feet long on the stone platform had already heavily crashed into the waves. Unsurprisingly, the blood-colored python pierced through the first wave as if it was piercing through paper. Boom! 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 The blood-colored python's strength was indeed extraordinary. It actually managed to break through 8 waves in succession. Its huge head slightly swayed, and it actually swept towards Zhuowen. Boom! When the python's head was 10 meters away from Zhuowen, the 9th wave suddenly roared out from under its feet. In an instant, it transformed into an incomparably huge water dragon and fiercely pounced on the blood-colored python. The most powerful part of the 9 overlapping waves palm was the 9th wave. The huge wave could transform into a huge water dragon, and its strength was much stronger than the previous 8 waves. The water dragon and the blood-colored python immediately intertwined on the stone platform. The aftermath of the collision was so strong that even the stone platform could not withstand it. Cracks began to spread on the surface of the stone platform, and from time to time, ear-piercing cracking sounds could be heard. Bang! The water dragon and the python fiercely collided once again. The huge force immediately tore through the air and made a hissing sound. Endless waves of air also spread out like ripples in all directions. Many people outside the square were blown to the ground, and for a moment some helpless screams could be heard. The blood-colored python's eyes revealed an ominous glint. A somewhat strange red light suddenly flashed across the python's eyes. The python looked up to the sky and roared. An intense blood-colored light burst out from the scales all over its body. Then, a somewhat terrifying aura suddenly emitted from its body. The blood-colored python fiercely entangled the water dragon. Its violently moving upper and lower jaws suddenly opened. Then, under the horrified gaze of the crowd, the python swallowed the water dragon into its stomach. Hiss! Seeing the incomparably huge water dragon being swallowed by the blood-colored python, the crowd could not help but gasp. Many people knew the power of the water dragon, which was not weaker than that of the void realm. Even so, it was still swallowed into the blood-colored python's stomach. What a powerful blood-colored python! What a powerful armor skill! Even the 9 overlapping waves palm is no match for it. I wonder what Zhuowen will do next? Guyu's eyes flickered as she looked at the figure on the stone platform. She did not know why, but at the moment when the blood-colored python swallowed the water dragon, a trace of worry emerged in her heart. Even she did not notice this strange emotion at all. At this moment Chan Sheng, who was on the platform of the Chens, heaved a sigh of relief. Since even the 9 overlapping waves palm could not stop the blood-colored python, he could not think of any trump card Zhuowen could use to resist the attack of the blood-colored python. Looks like the winner is still our Chen family. However, this little fellow Zhuowen is truly terrifying. He is actually able to force Tong to use such a secret technique that harms others without benefiting himself. If he continues to develop for a few more years, the champion of the next market square competition may very well end up in the Zhuo family's hands. However, the Zhuo family no longer has any hope this time. Chan Sheng gently tapped the tea table beside him, and a relaxed smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. At the same time, everyone in the square fixed their eyes on the stone platform. Many people knew about the 9 overlapping waves palm. This armor skill was quite powerful among the Earth rank armor skills. However, it still could not resist the attack of the blood-colored python. So, what trump card did the figure who had been the focus of attention have to resist the attack of the blood-colored python? Under everyone's gaze, the blood-colored python finally stared at the tiny figure. It raised its head to the sky and roared. The blood-colored python fiercely rushed toward Zhuowen with an endless fishy wind to devour him. Just when everyone thought that the figure would retreat under the attack of the blood python, Zhuowen surprised everyone once again. They saw the rather delicate young man shake his head slightly. Then, with a spring of his legs, his entire body shot towards the blood python like an arrow that had left the bow. Is this guy crazy? After seeing the power of the blood-colored python, he still dares to take the initiative to attack. He's too impulsive. Although it's understandable for a young man to be impulsive, it's a little stupid to be so impulsive. The power of the blood-colored python is comparable to that of a warrior in the first level of the void realm. This guy is simply courting death. Zhuowen's abnormal behavior suddenly caused an uproar. On the platform of the Zhuo family, Zhuo Xiangding and the others' faces changed greatly. They unconsciously clenched their fists. If it weren't for the rule that elders couldn't intervene, Zhuo Xiangding would have rushed to save Zhuowen. Father, what should we do? Zhuowen was too impulsive. Zhuo Beitian's face was also filled with anxiety as he spoke somewhat incoherently. Although the rule says that elders like us can't intervene, if Zhuowen really has something wrong, I will save Zhuowen even if it means breaking the rule. Now let's wait and see. Zhuowen has always been steady. I think he has his own reasons for doing this. On the stone platform, Zhuowen's eyes flashed with a trace of scarlet. He licked his lips and said, "It's time to try the power of the second sky of rampage." After saying that, Zhuowen's body suddenly emitted a fierce blood-red light. The blood veins in his body suddenly burst and turned into a blood-red mist. The ape pattern on his back also seemed to be alive. It suddenly wrapped around Zhuowen and turned into a giant ape. Second sky of rampage. Powerful blood-red energy suddenly gathered in Zhuowen's fist. Then, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he suddenly punched the head of the blood-colored python. At the same time, the ape shadow behind him became a little more solid. With a loud bang, everyone was shocked to see that the previously incomparably powerful blood-red python was smashed into the ground by Zhuowen's punch. The stone platform was also shattered by the impact of the python's huge body. As soon as he finished speaking, the entire square erupted in thunderous applause. Everyone stared at Zhuowen with excitement. This battle was indeed very exciting for these people, and Zhuowen's performance had conquered everyone. Bang! On the Chun clan's platform, Chen Sheng slammed the tea table beside him. The surging essence energy instantly smashed the tea table into smithereens. Zhuo family Zhuowen. Chen Sheng's gaze was extremely gloomy, and there was a trace of killing intent surging in the depths of his eyes. The Chun clan disciples behind Chen Sheng were all silent. They knew that the family head was truly furious. At the same time, this result also caused the Chun clan disciples to be somewhat dazed. As a Chun clan disciple, they clearly knew how terrifying Chen Tong-er's strength was. But even so, Chen Tong-er was still defeated by Zhuowen, who was at the same level as her. This indeed caused many of the Zhuo family disciples to feel dejected. Among them, the one with the most complicated feelings was none other than Chen Ting. Her beautiful eyes stared straight at the tall figure in the square. She also did not expect that the youth, whose cultivation was not much higher than hers, would actually be able to directly defeat her sister, who was known as the Chun clan's #1 genius, Chen Tong. Chen Tong are really lost in the end. Wang Meng's eyes narrowed as he stared at the figure on the stone platform with a slightly solemn expression. This is just what we want. In a while it will be our Wang family versus the Zhuo family. Meng-er, you have the opportunity to completely eliminate Zhuowen. Although I was a little surprised that he could directly defeat Chen Tong-er's blood python ice soul palm, it should not be difficult for you to defeat him with your current cultivation of the peak of the first level of the Yin Void realm. Wang Yuanqing casually glanced at the figure in the square, picked up the teacup and took a sip of tea. Don't worry, father. I will make Zhuowen, that bastard, pay the price. On the platform of the governor's mansion, Guyu looked at Zhuowen meaningfully and then said with a charming smile, "It seems that the master's vision is as sharp as ever. You should be very satisfied to have such a disciple." Master Kuraki stroked his white beard and said with a gratified smile, "Indeed. Otherwise, I would not have accepted him as my disciple." With Zhuowen's outstanding performance, Master Kuraki, as his master, naturally felt proud and beamed with joy. Back on the platform, Zhuowen immediately felt many eager eyes staring at him. Even some young girls of the Zhuo family kept sneaking glances at him, which made Zhuowen smile bitterly. It seemed that this victory was really important to the Zhuo family. "Zhuowen, well done, you've really brought honor to our Zhuo clan this time. That old fogey Chen Sheng is such a petty person. I wonder if he's going to go crazy from anger now that our Zhuo clan has won against his Chun clan?" Zhuo Xiangding's face was full of smiles. His rough hands patted Zhuowen's shoulder excitedly, and his eyes were full of deep excitement. Hearing this, Zhuowen involuntarily glanced at the Chun family's platform. He happened to see Chen Sheng fly into a rage and smash the table with a face full of anger. Shaking his head slightly, he was about to sit down and rest when a fragrant wind assaulted his nose. Zhuo Xiang-er's beautiful eyes were filled with concern as she asked, "Are you all right?" Zhuowen shrugged and said, "Thanks for your concern, but it's nothing serious. The second round will begin soon. The 5 of you should take a good rest and recover. Actually, our Zhuo family's goal has been achieved by defeating the Chun family this time. When you fight the Wang family later, you just have to do your best." There's no need to force yourself. After all, the Wang family's foundation is much higher than our Zhuo family's. Zhuo Xiangding came to Zhuowen and the others and said with a serious expression, "Grandfather, how's the strength of the Wang family's younger generation?" Zhuo Xiang'er, who was sitting next to Zhuowen, was a little puzzled by Zhuo Xiangding's serious expression, so she asked curiously. Zhuo Xiang'er's question immediately piqued the interest of the others. Even Zhuo Wen was listening curiously. He knew that since Zhuo Xiangding treated this matter so seriously, the younger generation sent by the Wang family this time would not be simple. As far as I know, the strength of the Wang family's younger generation is basically above the Nirvana realm. The strongest one is Wang Meng, who has reached the peak of the first level of the Yin Void realm. Their overall strength is one level higher than our Zhuo family's. Zhuo Xiangding's expression became more bitter as he said helplessly, "Hiss." When Zhuo Wen and the rest heard this, they instantly sucked in a breath of air. Even Zhuo Wen's expression turned somewhat ugly. He did not expect that the younger generation of the Wang clan were actually all at the Nirvana stage and above. Now the Zhuo family only had Zhuowen, Zhuo Xiang'er, and Zhuo Tian who were above the Nirvana realm. The remaining Zhuo Meishue and Zhuo Rong were only at the soul-changing realm. If it was a 50-50 battle, the Zhuo family would definitely lose 2 rounds. For a moment, the entire Zhuo family platform became a little dull. Obviously, the Wang family's lineup was a little terrifying. You don't have to be depressed. Even if we lose to the Wang family this time, our Zhuo family won't lose anything. In the previous years, the family that came in second place in the market battle paid a much lower price. For our Zhuo family, it's basically not a loss. Zhuo Xiangding gently stroked his beard and smiled comfortingly. Hearing this, everyone sighed softly. If that was really the case, then they wouldn't lose anything even if they lost to the Wang family. However, Zhuowen's brows were tightly knitted together. Based on his understanding of Wang Meng, the Wang family would definitely not let this matter rest. The second round of the market battle is about to begin. Disciples of the Zhuo family and Wang family, please come to the plaza. The old man from the city lord mansion came to the plaza once again. His vigorous voice was amplified by Yuan power, making it extremely loud and clear in the entire plaza. Let's go. We just have to do our best in this battle. Zhuowen was the first to stand up. The others also looked at the figure that had just won the victory for the Zhuo family. Even Zhuo Tian, who had always refused to accept Zhuowen, was unusually silent. Very quickly, the younger generation of the 2 families were led into the plaza by their respective elders. The ruins caused by the battle between Zhuowen and Chan Tong had been cleaned up. The plaza was still filled with 5 huge sturdy stone platforms. The city lord mansion was indeed the #1 power in Rattan Armor City. Their efficiency was very good. The plaza that was filled with ruins a moment ago was now looking brand new. The younger generation of the 2 families looked at each other from a distance, their gazes filled with hostility. Wang Meng and Wang Zheng's gazes were somewhat cold as they looked at Zhuowen, who was standing on the Zhuo family's side. Zhuowen, this time your Zhuo family won't be so lucky. Your Zhuo family's victory in the market battle will end here. Wang Meng grinned and said sarcastically. Wang Meng's tone made Zhuo Xiang'er and the others a little angry. However, the Wang family was indeed stronger than their Zhuo family, so they didn't argue. After all, even if they lost this time, their Zhuo family wouldn't lose much. At this moment, Wang Yuanqing, who had been sitting on the platform, suddenly looked down at the crowd in the plaza and said, "Everyone, can you listen to me first?" Wang Yuanqing's words attracted everyone's attention. When they saw that it was the head of the Wang family who had spoken, many people's faces were filled with reverence. The Wang family was the head of the 3 big families, and the second most powerful power in Rattan Armor City. The head of the Wang family had a lot of authority in Rattan Armor City. Wang Yuanqing looked at the silent plaza with satisfaction and said in a clear voice, "Everyone should know the rules of the market battle. However, this time the Wang family wants to use force against the Zhuo family. I wonder what the Zhuo family thinks?" Chapter 81. Force Game. Force Game? Zhuowen's heart sank as his expression turned ugly. The so-called force game was a gamble where both parties had to put up a bet. However, this type of game was compulsory. As long as one party initiated the challenge, the other party would have to accept it. If the other party did not accept the challenge, it would be considered as admitting defeat, and they would have to pay a certain amount of compensation. The only ones who had the power to initiate a force game were the previous winners of the market battles. However, the price that the initiator had to pay was not small. In other words, if the initiator lost, they would have to pay twice the amount of the bet to the challenged party. It was precisely because of this high price that no family had ever used the power to initiate a force game since the market battles began. Now, the Wang family had actually initiated a force game at all costs. Their goal was obviously to use their family's deep foundation to bring down the Zhuo family. Wang Yuanqing crossed his arms and glanced at Zhuo Xiangding, who was not far away. He said with some ridicule, "Could it be that the head of the Zhuo family is afraid? Do you not dare to accept our challenge? If you don't dare, then your Zhuo family will admit defeat and you will have to pay some compensation." As soon as Wang Yuanqing's words came out, many members of the Zhuo family glared at him. The Wang family's suggestion of a force game was obviously an attempt to bring down the Zhuo family. Zhuowen and the other four in the square also had very ugly expressions. Looking at the ridicule on the faces of Wang Meng and the other four, the five of them were suppressing the anger in their hearts. "Father, what should we do? Regardless of whether we agree or not, our Zhuo family is in a precarious situation. It seems that the remaining market of our Zhuo family is also in danger." Zhuo Baitian came to Zhuo Xiangding's side, his face full of anger. "Ai, Wang Yuanqing, this old man has clearly calculated this. Even if our Zhuo family does not want to accept this bet, we still have to accept it." Zhuo Xiangding sighed and said helplessly. Seeing that Zhuo Xiangding had said the same thing, Zhuo Baitian also fell silent and no longer spoke. "Wang Yuanqing, our Zhuo family accepts your challenge." Zhuo Xiangding snorted and said indifferently. A smile appeared on Wang Yuanqing's face as he said loudly, "The head of the Zhuo family is indeed courageous. Since the head of the Zhuo family has agreed to this bet, this old man will not be polite and make the first bet. Our Wang family is willing to bet the management rights of the 10 markets under our name. According to the rules of compulsory gambling, the head of the Zhuo family must take out half of our bet." After saying that, Wang Yuanqing raised his eyebrows and looked at Zhuo Xiangding, whose face was a little ugly. The mocking expression on his face became even more intense. Zhuo Xiangding gritted his teeth and said fiercely, "Our Zhuo family is willing to bet the management rights of the 5 markets under our name. Father, our Zhuo family only has 5 markets left. If we take them out now, our Zhuo family's finances will be in dire straits in the future." And, before Zhuo Baitian could finish his words, he was interrupted by Zhuo Xiangding. At this time, Zhuo Xiangding's eyes were bloodshot as he said coldly, "Boss, can't you see the situation now? Even if I don't agree, I'm afraid that the remaining 5 markets of our Zhuo family will not be guaranteed. With Wang Yuanqing's means, he may be even more ruthless." Zhuo Baitian's face changed and he finally stopped talking. He stood to the side in silence, but his face was full of worry. Originally, after defeating the Chun family, the Zhuo family thought that the Zhuo family could sit back and relax. They didn't expect the Wang family to be so ruthless and use a forced gambling method. No one expected this. After Zhuo Xiangding gritted his teeth and took out the bet, the crowd in the square was in an uproar. Then, many people looked at the Zhuo family with pity. Obviously, many people knew about the current situation of the Zhuo family, and the Wang family was obviously going to push the Zhuo family to the brink of desperation. Moreover, the juniors sent by the Wang family this time were all full of powerful auras. Clearly, their cultivation was above the nirvana realm. On the other hand, on the Zhuo family's side, only Zhuowen, Zhuo Xiang'er, and Zhuo Tian were barely qualified. Zhuo Meishue and Zhuo Rong were only at the soul transformation realm. No matter how one looked at it, the disparity in strength between the two sides was huge. There was no need to guess who would win. The Zhuo family is really unlucky this time. It wasn't easy for them to avoid being last place, but they're actually being targeted by the Wang family. The Wang family has a deep foundation and dared to make a bet. However, the disparity in strength between the two sides is too great. That's right. Even if Zhuowen's performance was amazing, I'm afraid he can't turn the tide in this situation. The Wang family's defeat is already set. Sighs came from the square. Everyone knew that the Wang family was challenging the Zhou family, but the Zhou family couldn't avoid it. On the platform of the city lord's mansion, Gu Yu and Grandmaster Karaki stood side by side. Looking at the overbearing Wang Yuanxing and the helpless Zhou family in the square, the two of them frowned. Grandmaster Karaki, it looks like the Zhou family has really fallen into an awkward situation this time. According to my investigation, the Zhou family has come in last place several times in the market battles. There aren't many markets left under their name. This time, the Wang family suddenly proposed a forced game. It's obvious that they want to take over all the markets under the Zhou family's name. If Grandmaster wants to help, Gu Yu can inform my father to come help the Zhou family. Gu Yu's beautiful eyes flashed. Her jade-like hand casually lifted the black hair hanging in front of her chest. Grandmaster Karaki frowned slightly and said indifferently, "Force games are part of the rules of the market battles. Even if your father is the city lord, he can't violate the rules of the market battles. Otherwise, it'll easily lead to a backlash from many forces in the city. Let's observe the situation first. That little fellow Zhuowen doesn't seem to be too worried. Perhaps that little fellow has a way to save the Zhou family from this crisis." After Grandmaster Karaki finished speaking, he stood silently on the platform. Seeing Grandmaster Karaki's attitude, Gu Yu also knew that the former did not wish to discuss this topic any further. She quietly stood beside him, but her pair of beautiful eyes involuntarily paused on the rather tall and quiet figure in the plaza. She wanted to see how this young man, who even Grandmaster Karaki praised so much, would turn the tide in this adversity. After the bet between the Wang family and the Zhou family was settled, the old man standing in the middle of the platform nodded slightly. Then, with a wave of his right hand, countless specks of light flew out from his sleeve once again. Soon, the opponents of the 5 juniors from the 2 families were selected. However, the results of the matchups made the Zhou family secretly cry out in alarm. Zhou Meishue and Zhou Rong were matched against 2 of the weaker younger generation members of the Wang clan. However, even the weakest of them had reached the initial nirvana stage. Therefore, it was expected that they would lose these 2 matches. Zhou Xiang'er's opponent was Wang Bo, who was at the middle stage of the nirvana realm. The outcome of the match was somewhat uncertain. Wang Meng, the strongest member of the Wang family, was not matched against Zhuo Wan, the strongest member of the Zhou family. Instead, his opponent was Zhuowen, whose strength was second only to Zhuo Tian. Although Zhuo Tian's strength ranked second in the Zhou family, he was only at the peak of the nirvana realm. However, Wang Meng had already reached the peak of the first level of the Yin Void realm. Therefore, there was no doubt that the Wang family would lose this match. As for Zhuowen's opponent, it was Wang Meng's younger brother, Wang Zheng. The result of the matchups disappointed the onlookers in the platform. Although many people expected that the Zhou family would lose this match, many of them wanted to see the duel between Wang Meng, the strongest member of the Wang family, and Zhuowen, the strongest member of the Zhou family. Although Zhuowen's realm was 1 level lower than Wang Meng's, after the battle with Chan Tong-er, everyone knew that this little guy, who had just reached the Yin Void realm, was no weaker than a warrior at the first level of the Yin Void realm. Hehe. Zhuowen, it seems that I won't be able to teach you a lesson. However, I think there will be plenty of time in the future. You just need to wash your neck and wait, Wang Meng said with a strange smile. Zhuowen ignored Wang Meng's sarcasm. He was also frowning about the matchups. If Wang Meng's opponent was him, the Zhou family would have a chance to win. However, the chances were slim now. The old man glanced indifferently at the 2 juniors who were opposing each other and said coldly, "The match is about to begin. Go and find your own stone platform." As soon as the old man finished speaking, the 10 of them chose their own stone platforms and lightly jumped onto them. "Now let the match begin." Bang! As soon as the old man finished speaking, the Yuanli on the stone platforms in the square suddenly exploded. Powerful fluctuations spread out like ripples in the square. On the stone platform in the corner, Zhuowen and Wang Zheng were facing each other. Wang Zheng glanced at Zhuowen coldly and sneered, "Zhuowen, this time your Zhou family has no chance of winning. Hehe, this is the consequence of offending our Wang family. Looks like the lesson from last time wasn't enough. This time I need to give you a deep lesson. Otherwise you will bite people again." Zhuowen clenched his fists and said to Wang Zheng with an indifferent gaze. Hearing this, Wang Zheng's expression suddenly changed. He snorted and said, "It doesn't matter how strong you are. This time your Zhuo family will definitely lose." After saying this, Wang Zheng slightly raised his right hand. This was a gesture of giving up. Obviously, Wang Zheng knew that he was no match for Zhuowen, so he chose to give up. "Zhuowen, this time no one will support you. In the eyes of our Wang family, your Zhuo family is insignificant." After saying this, Wang Zheng nimbly jumped off the stone platform. At the same time, two muffled groans came from the other stone platforms. Turning his head, Zhuowen saw Zhuo Meishue and Zhuo Rong flying back while vomiting blood. Wang family Wang Lin wins. Wang family Wang Ying wins. Looking at the two sorry figures, Zhuowen didn't expect Zhuo Meishue and Zhuo Rong to be defeated so quickly. Chapter 82. Disadvantage and defeat. At this moment, the atmosphere in the plaza was exceptionally solemn. Everyone stared unblinkingly at the two figures clashing on the remaining two stone platforms in the plaza. Following the elimination of Zhuo Meishue and Zhuo Rong, the situation on the Zhuo family's side had become extremely uncertain. Even though Zhuowen had won the battle without a fight, this point could not change the fact that the Zhuo family was in a disadvantageous position. At this moment on the platform, Zhuo Meishue and Zhuo Rong lowered their heads in shame, not daring to look at Zhuo Xiangding. Evidently, the two of them felt guilty about their previous defeat. Zhuo Xiangding glanced at the two of them and softly sighed. "The two of you need not blame yourselves too much. After all, those two from the Wang family are Nirvana stage practitioners. It is understandable that the two of you were not their match." After hearing Zhuo Xiangding's words, the tension on the two's faces eased a little. However, they still stood at the back without saying a word. Ignoring the two's reactions, Zhuo Xiangding glanced at the solemn-looking youth beside him. Then he gently patted the youth's shoulder and said, "Zhuowen, it seems like the heavens are not helping our Zhuo family in this battle for the marketplace. You need not worry too much. Zhuo Tian will not be able to hold on any longer. He will definitely be defeated within 10 moves." Zhuowen did not respond to Zhuo Xiangding's words. Instead, his eyes flickered as he stared at the two figures clashing on the stone platforms in the plaza. Bang! On the stone platform on the left, a figure flew backwards in a somewhat miserable manner. His body forcefully flipped in midair and barely managed to stop at the edge of the stone platform. There were two deep depressions on the ground in front of him. "You must be Zhuo Tun. Don't tell me you still can't see the difference between us? Now I will give you a chance to surrender. Otherwise, I will not be responsible if I cripple you later." Wang Meng's bull-like figure gradually appeared in front of Zhuo Tian's eyes. Zhuo Tian looked at Wang Meng indifferently and retorted somewhat mockingly, "Do you really think I'm a fool? Do you really think I don't know what you're planning? Now, I can tell you clearly that there's no way I'll surrender." "Oh, what a tough bone. I wonder if you will still say such words when I cripple you later?" Wang Meng narrowed his eyes as a faint killing intent flashed in the depths of his eyes. As the two of them conversed, origin energy surged out like waves from another stone platform. A muffled groan resounded, and then a figure was blasted flying while spitting out blood. "Zhuo family's Zhuo Xiang'er wins." As soon as this voice resounded, the square suddenly became a little uproar. Obviously, many people did not expect the Zhuo family to win another round. Now that the score of the two families was tied, the key round fell on Zhuo Tian. Not bad. That brat Wang Yi actually lost to the little girl from the Zhuo family. But from this, it seems that the key round falls on the two of us. Wang Meng licked his lips and looked at Zhuo Tian with scarlet eyes. As he spoke, Wang Meng spread out his hands with his palms facing up. Then he slowly danced in front of his body in a strange pattern, as if he was fiddling with waves. In this dance, traces of bone-chilling cold condensed in his palms. In an instant, his hands suddenly turned into a strange icy blue color. 9 overlapping wave palm. A low roar was emitted from his throat, following which, his palms suddenly struck out like endless waves. Surging yuan power also surged out from his palms. Crash. As soon as his palms struck out, the area 10 miles in front of Wang Meng turned into an endless ocean. In the depths of the ocean, waves like ancient fierce beasts surged toward Zhuotian one after another. The violent sound of the tsunami was deafening in the whole square. The 9 overlapping wave palm that Wang Meng used at this time was more powerful than Zhuowen's. Obviously, he had been immersed in this armor technique for a long time. When Wang Meng used this move, the faces of the Zhuo family members suddenly turned ugly. Many of them could feel how powerful Wang Meng's move was. Even if Zhuotian's cultivation had reached the peak of Nirvana realm, it would be difficult for him to resist this move. It seems that our Zhuo family will lose this time. As the strongest person in the Zhuo family, Zhuo Xiangding could naturally feel that the power of Wang Meng's palm was far beyond his strength. With Zhuotian's strength, it would be difficult for him to block Wang Meng's move. If he wasn't careful, Zhuotian might even be killed by this attack. Father, with Tian-er's strength, he will never be able to block this move. Hurry up and stop this fight, Zhuoding Tian said anxiously. For the first time, a worried expression appeared on his cold face. Looking at the anxious Zhuo Xiangding sighed and said, I know. I will send a message to Zhuotian to give up immediately. The disparity in strength is too great. There is no need for this fight. As he said that, Zhuo Xiangding waved his sleeve with a solemn expression. Then, with the transmission of his yuan energy, he sent a message to Zhuotian, who was in the square. However, Zhuotian shook his head slightly. His lips quivered a few times as he stared at Wang Meng with a determined gaze. Zhuo Xiangding's face suddenly turned ugly. He slammed the table and said, Zhuotian refuses to give up. He wants to continue fighting. As soon as he said that, it caused an uproar among the disciples on the platform. Then, many of them looked at Zhuotian in disbelief. No one had expected that the selfish Zhuotian would not back down in the face of Wang Meng. Even though he knew that Wang Meng was far stronger than him, he still did not have the slightest intention of backing down. Why is this child so silly? He is obviously not Wang Meng's match, but he refuses to give up. Zhuoding Tian's face turned ugly, and there was a hint of anxiety in his eyes. At this moment, the fluctuation of yuan energy in the square spread out like a tsunami. Wang Meng's body was surrounded by turbulent waves. He looked coldly at Zhuotian, who was in front of him. Wang Meng punched out his palms, and the surging yuan energy immediately turned into endless waves that whizzed towards Zhuotian. Humph! Zhuotian snorted. The dense nirvana golden robe appeared on the surface of his body, and he looked firmly at the surging waves. Zhuo is not the only one in the Zhuo family. There is also me, Zhuotian. If Zhuo can do it, I, Zhuotian, can naturally do it too. Zhuotian's eyes were filled with determination as he looked at the tall figure on the platform again. He did not know when the existence that he used to look down on now needed him to look up to. He did not want to be overshadowed by this figure forever. He wanted to prove to everyone in the Zhuo family that he, Zhuotian, was not inferior to Zhuowen in terms of cultivation, but his willpower was not inferior to Zhuowen's. Zhuotian looked deeply at the figure, and his lips moved. Then he turned around and rushed towards Wang Meng like a moth darting into a flame. Zhuotian's action immediately caused an uproar in the crowd. Zhuotian, who was only at the peak of the nirvana stage, actually dared to face Wang Meng's attack head-on. On the platform, Zhuowen's eyes flickered as he looked at the figure darting towards Wang Meng like a moth darting into a flame. Zhuotian's voice resounded in his mind. Zhuowen, if I die in this battle, our grudges will be written off. I know that with your talent, you will definitely be able to inherit the patriarch's position in the family. I hope that my father will not be implicated in this grudge. It doesn't matter if you don't accept it. Anyway, these are my last words. Boom boom boom. At this moment, Zhuotian was like a god descending from the heavens as he ferociously broke through the first 3 waves. Powerful ripples of elemental energy spread out in all directions, causing even the stone platform to shake unsteadily. Zhuotian, who was only at the nirvana stage, was actually able to break through the 3rd wave of Wang Meng's 9 overlapping waves palm. Many of the spectators were in disbelief. It seems like Zhuotian from the Zhuo family is not to be underestimated. He is actually able to face Wang Meng head-on. Zhuotian used to be the strongest person in the Zhuo family. However, Zhuowen's sudden rise caused the title to change hands. Zhuotian is not weak. It's just that Zhuowen's brilliance is too dazzling, so we didn't notice him. However, even if Zhuotian goes all out, he won't be a match for Wang Meng. This is his final struggle. Sounds of discussion rang out as many people looked at Zhuotian's figure with some pity in their eyes. Since you are courting death, I will fulfill your wish. A murderous intent flashed across Wang Meng's eyes. Immediately after, he blasted out with both of his palms. Another 5 waves whizzed towards Zhuotian with monstrous momentum. Crack! A clear sound immediately resounded in the arena. Soon after, everyone saw the Nirvana golden robe on Zhuotian's body crumbling inch by inch under this attack. Zhuotian spat out a mouthful of blood as he whizzed out of the stone stage. However, what no one expected was that the instant Zhuotian flew backwards, a blood-colored light shot out from his fingertip and headed straight for Wang Meng. A sense of danger rose in Wang Meng's heart. He suddenly tilted his body and a blood-red light pierced through his shoulder. Fresh blood flowed down from his shoulder. With a flip of his hand, a sharp blood arrow appeared in his palm. At this moment, there were still traces of blood on the surface of the blood arrow. Looking at the blood arrow in his palm, Wang Meng immediately felt a chill in his heart. If he had not been vigilant and dodged in time, the blood arrow might have pierced his heart. This blood arrow was clearly Zhuotian's final trump card. You are courting death. A trace of blood-red killing intent slowly rose in Wang Meng's eyes. This was the first time in many years that he felt a trace of fear of death. If he had not pulled back in time, it was very likely that he would have died here. Today I want you to die. Wang Meng roared to the sky and pushed out his palms. The endless ocean under his feet gathered into a huge water dragon that was a few hundred feet long. The water dragon roared and pounced on Zhuotian. If Zhuotian were to be hit by the water dragon, he would definitely die. Zhuotian's eyes turned red. In a flash, he flew toward the arena. Zhuotian was his life's hope, and he wouldn't let anything happen to him. Soon a figure stopped him. When he looked up, he saw that it was Wang Yuanxing. At this moment, Wang Yuanxing said condescendingly, "Is the Zhuo family trying to break the rules of the battle in the marketplace? Even the elders are interfering in this matter." Wang Yuanxing, you old man. This time the Zhuo family admits defeat. Hurry up and stop Wang Meng's attack. Zhuotian's eyes were red, and he was breathing heavily as he shouted. Zhuotian didn't give up. Naturally, it doesn't count as admitting defeat. Wang Yuanxing said indifferently. He was furious when he saw that Wang Meng was injured by Zhuotian's hidden weapon. At this moment, he naturally wanted to kill Zhuotian. While the two of them were talking, the water dragon in the arena had already swallowed Zhuotian. However, at the moment when the water dragon was about to swallow Zhuotian, a skinny figure flew out from the platform and stood in front of Zhuotian to protect him. Then, everyone saw a scarlet ape's shadow appear on the stone platform. The ape's shadow threw a punch at the water dragon. With a shrill cry, the water dragon exploded under the ape's punch and turned into countless water droplets that splattered on the arena. When the water vapor dissipated, a tall figure appeared in front of everyone. When the crowd saw the figure, they couldn't help but burst into an uproar. Chapter 83. The Battle of Resurrection. Since the elders can't interfere in the battle of the market, it shouldn't be a problem for someone of the same generation to interfere, right? A calm and clear voice rang out in the empty plaza. Then, it reverberated through the entire plaza like a ripple. Swish! The moment the voice rang out, everyone's attention was once again focused on the stone platform in the plaza. Now, the several hundred feet tall water dragon on the stone platform had completely disappeared. In its place was a young man with a smile on his face standing proudly. The young man's figure seemed to be frozen in place at this moment. The old man in charge regained his senses and said calmly, "It's all right. However, interfering means admitting defeat. Therefore, the Wang family's Wang Meng wins this round." Zhuotian's expression was somewhat complicated as he looked at the figure standing in front of him like a pine tree. His lips twitched a few times, but in the end, he could only sigh and remain silent. He knew that the Zhuo family had been completely defeated this time. The price of this defeat was the Zhuo family's remaining rights to the market. The Zhuo family would also fall into a state of financial distress because of this. Seeing the water dragon that he had condensed being crushed so easily by Zhuowen, Wang Meng's pupils couldn't help but shrink. Then, he grinned and a cold voice slowly rang out. It seems that I've underestimated you. To be able to block the 9th wave of the 9 overlapping wave palm so easily, your strength is already comparable to mine. However, even if that's the case, the Zhuo family has already lost in the end. After he finished speaking, Wang Meng glanced at the old man in charge and said, Sir, can you announce the final result of this battle of the market? At this moment, the Zhuo family platform was deathly silent. Everyone's faces were filled with disappointment and unwillingness. They didn't expect that the Zhuo family would still lose after putting in so much effort for this battle of the market. Furthermore, the Zhuo family's final rights to the market were also lost. This was a fact that no one in the Zhuo family could accept. The old man glanced at Wang Meng indifferently, then nodded and announced, The battle of the market has come to an end. I'm sure everyone is well aware of the result. Therefore, the final winner is... Wait. Just as the old man was about to announce the results, a rather calm voice slowly sounded. The old man frowned slightly. The feeling of being interrupted made him a little unhappy. He looked at the young man not far away and said, Do you have any objections? Our Zhuo family hasn't lost yet? Zhuowen suddenly took a step forward, and a ferocious aura surged out from his body. Zhuowen, are you blind or deaf? The result is already very clear. Don't tell me you still want to be unreasonable? Wang Meng said sinisterly. Eldest brother. Don't you think that Zhuowen's back looks a lot like third brother from 15 years ago? When third brother proposed the battle of resurrection, you seem to have said the same thing. But what was the result in the end? The old man's voice became a little hoarse and gentle at this time. However, if one listened carefully, one could still hear a trace of tremor in the old man's voice. He knew better than anyone else how important Zhuowen was to the Zhuo family. However, the moment that figure proposed the battle of resurrection, the old man's eyes suddenly became blurry. It was as if the tall figure in the plaza at this time had overlapped with the figure from 15 years ago. The scene was so similar to what was happening now. Eldest brother. He is third brother's son. After Zhuo Xiangding finally said this rather complicated sentence, he did not speak anymore. He just stared at the plaza without blinking. Zhuo Baidian was completely silent. Zhuo Dingtian, who was behind him, was holding the seriously injured Zhuo Tian. He stared at the tall figure in the plaza with a complicated look in his eyes. On the platform of the city lord's mansion, Guyu looked at the plaza with a dignified expression and said with a flickering tone, This guy actually dares to challenge the battle of resurrection. He is too impulsive. When everyone's eyes were focused on the stone platform, two figures stood quietly at the top of a magnificent building far away from the plaza. Their eyes were also focused on the Godstone Plaza. The two figures were a middle-aged man and a young man of about 20 years old. The middle-aged man was dressed in a purple robe. He had thick eyebrows and big eyes. He had a dignified appearance and a faint majesty exuded from his body. It was obvious that he had been in a high position for a long time. The young man was handsome and had a good temperament. However, there was always a trace of contempt and arrogance between his eyebrows. Traces of a cold aura slowly spread out from his eyes, letting people know that this person was not to be trifled with. Guaxian, what do you think of the little guy from the Zhuo family? This is the second time someone has dared to challenge the battle of resurrection since the start of the market square battle. The man in purple robe's voice was loud and clear with a trace of magnetism, making people feel relaxed and happy. The battle of resurrection? Other than Wang Meng, the rest of the Wang family are trash. Even if it is Wang Meng, I can make him lose his ability to fight in 3 rounds and even take his life. In my opinion, the battle of resurrection is a joke. The younger generation of Rattan Armor City is too weak. They are not a challenge to me at all. My eyes are not on Rattan Armor City, but on Muqing County and even the entire Qingxian Empire. The young man named Gu Exian had his hands behind his back. His tone was full of arrogance. The strength of these little fellows is indeed nothing in your eyes. However, that little fellow called Zhuo Wen is not so simple. Since this child is able to challenge the resurrection battle, he should have some trump cards. Most importantly, this child is Zhuo Xiaotian's son. The purple-clothed man's voice was as calm as an ancient well. Zhuo Xiaotian? The true number one of the younger generation of Rotan Armor City? The one who won the recognition of the Qing Emperor and was made a marquis 10 years ago? The young man's arrogance immediately disappeared. His tone was slightly shaken as he spoke. That's right. Zhuo Xiaotian can be considered the most talented cultivator I have ever seen. His talent is not inferior to the disciples of the Qingxian Empire's 5 great families. Unfortunately, 10 years ago, when he was just made a marquis, news spread that he had disappeared. This happened too suddenly. It happened too suddenly. Even the Zhuo family didn't know that Zhuo Xiaotian had already been made a marquis and became a governor of a border. If I didn't have some connections in the imperial capital, I wouldn't have known that Zhuo Xiaotian had become a marquis. At that time it really shocked me. Unfortunately, the man in purple robe had a trace of regret on his face. The Zhuo family didn't know that Zhuo Xiaotian had been made a marquis? Then why didn't father tell them about the Zhuo family? The young man asked with some confusion. The Zhuo family is too weak. It's not a good thing to tell them this news. Moreover, when Zhuo Xiaotian was made a marquis, he used a fake name. Since he used a fake name, it means that there is something fishy going on. Since Zhuo Xiaotian himself didn't want to tell the family, why should I do something unnecessary? Alright, let's not talk about the past. Next, let's see how this little guy Zhuowen performs. After the man in purple robe finished speaking, he didn't say anything else. Instead, he put his hands behind his back and focused his gaze on the Godstone Plaza not far away. The young man glanced at the mysterious man in purple robe. Although he had some doubts in his heart, he was smart enough not to ask. Instead, he focused his gaze on the tall figure in the Godstone Plaza. Chapter 84. One move is enough. In the resurrection battle, life and death are up to fate. Do you still want to participate in it? The old host stared at the calm young man and asked in surprise. The young man smiled and nodded slightly, indicating his final decision. Since both sides have no objection, the resurrection battle will begin now. The old host stared at the young man deeply, and then his powerful voice resounded between heaven and earth again. The old man's announcement undoubtedly set off a climax in the square. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the thin figure in the square. They knew that this figure was going to fight 1 against 5, and one of them was a warrior in the first level of the Void realm. Everyone wanted to know how this figure was going to deal with this resurrection battle. On the stone platform, Wang Meng crossed his arms and looked down at the young man not far away. He said indifferently, "I intended to let you live until the end of the battle. I didn't expect you to be so impatient to seek death. The 5 of us will certainly fulfill your wish." As he spoke, Wang Meng took a step forward. Surging yuan power accompanied by extreme cold energy surged out from his body. At the same time, an icy blue cold energy slowly spread out from the surface of his body. Finally, it condensed into a sparkling and translucent deep blue armor. The yuan power and cold air on the dark blue armor intertwined with each other, and it looked very dazzling. However, the powerful force emitted from the flowing light made many people look more serious. They all knew that the armor on Wang Meng's body was the unique talent of all warriors above the first level of the Void realm. The armor's defensive power was also amazing. After Wang Meng took a step forward, Wang Zheng and the other 4 behind him revealed a ferocious expression. Bright golden nirvana golden clothes appeared on their bodies one after another. "I wonder how many rounds you can withstand under our joint attack?" Wang Meng said sarcastically with a gloomy look in his eyes. "Haha. 1 move. I only need 1 move to determine the winner." Zhuowen shook his head and said indifferently, stretching out a finger. Wang Meng and the other 4 narrowed their eyes. Immediately after, they sneered, "What a shameless boaster. I don't know where your confidence comes from. You actually dare to say that you will win in 1 move." Zhuowen smiled. However, there was a chill surging deep within his eyes. Soon after, his 5 fingers were tightly clenched into a fist. An ice-cold blade-like voice spread across the square. "I said 1 move is enough." As soon as Zhuowen finished speaking, He clenched his fists tightly. A rich scarlet light immediately erupted from his body. The countless blood veins on the surface of his body exploded like countless bombs. Bang! 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 Muffled sounds echoed in the field. Second sky of rampage. A low roar spread from his throat, and countless bloodlines gathered behind him. In the end, the ape pattern on his back seemed to come to life. With a sudden roar, it turned into a gigantic ape shadow that was hundreds of feet tall and appeared behind him. When the ape shadow appeared, a wave of negative emotions that contained ruthlessness and killing intent immediately spread across the entire square. Many of the weaker ones felt a chill in their hearts when they felt this ruthless emotion, and they actually stood still on the spot, unable to move. What a tyrannical and ruthless aura. What kind of armor technique is this person using to actually have such power? Everyone's gazes gathered on the figure that was wrapped in countless blood-colored energy. Traces of seriousness finally rose in their eyes. On the Chun family platform, Chun Tong-er's face was slightly pale. Her gaze was somewhat flickering as she looked at the ape shadow behind Zhuowen. She clearly remembered that in the first round, Zhuowen had used this move to cleanly defeat her. Moreover, she could feel that the power that Zhuowen had used was even stronger than when he fought with her. In other words, when Zhuowen faced her, he had not used his full strength. At this thought, a trace of complexity and humiliation flashed across Chun Tong-er's beautiful eyes. However, Wang Meng and the other four are not easy to deal with. Gaze after gaze turned to look at the 5 figures on the stone platform. At this moment, the 5 of them were somewhat shocked by the commotion caused by Zhuowen. However, their expressions quickly darkened. They clearly understood that if the 5 of them were unable to finish off Zhuowen even after joining forces, it would be a huge blow to their Wang family's reputation. He does indeed have some ability. However, it is still not enough for us. Wang Zheng, the 5 of us will attack together. There is no need to hold back. Today, I will make this little bastard pay here. Just as Wang Meng's words sounded out, Wang Zheng and the other 3 behind him nodded their heads with a dark expression. Extremely terrifying yuan power undulations erupted from their bodies. In a moment, the entire square was like a vacuum due to the powerful yuan power undulations, and several broken rocks actually slowly floated in mid-air. Attack! A low roar erupted from Wang Meng's throat. Promptly, Wang Zheng and the other 3 behind him instantly transformed into 4 shadows. Surging yuan power burst forth from their fists. Mysterious Yin claws. Tiger roar in the forest. Waterbird fists. Pure Yang finger. The 4 of them unleashed their most proficient armor techniques as they viciously dashed towards Zhuowen. Wang Meng, who was at the back of the 4, had a cold glint in his eyes. Waves of ice-blue cold chi were emitted from the surface of his body. The giant ape suddenly took a step forward and its huge fist, with a strong bloody aura, fiercely punched at the 5 attacks that were coming straight at him. The powerful force caused invisible circular ripples to erupt in the air. Boom! 5 ferocious attacks tore through the sky at an astonishing speed. After which, they violently collided with the fists of the blood-red ape under countless fiery gazes. Dong! At the moment of the collision, it seemed that the whole world was silent. Then, everyone was shocked to find that a violent energy crazily exploded in the sky. The energy was like an erupting volcano, becoming gorgeous and colorful in the sky. The violent energy swept out in an unparalleled manner. Many practitioners who were closer to the square were affected by the energy shockwaves and immediately vomited blood. Their figures were miserably shot backwards. On the 4 big platforms, the powerful elders also took action. Vigorous yuan power turned into a half-fan-shaped barrier at this moment, protecting the juniors on the platforms behind them. However, when the energy ripples collided with the barrier and emitted creaking sounds, many people's faces changed. This kind of attack was really beyond the expectations of many people. This kind of commotion only lasted for a while. Then numerous gazes were cast back at the square. At this moment, 6 figures were facing each other in the square Pucci. Under the countless gazes, Wang Zheng and the other 3 all vomited a mouthful of blood at the same time. Soon after, the clothes on their bodies exploded and a bloody mist sprayed out from their bodies. They fell to the ground and their auras were extremely weak. How is this possible? At this moment, Wang Meng was also in a rather sorry state. However, he did not suffer any serious injuries. Looking at the 4 fallen figures beside him, his eyes were filled with disbelief. He did not expect that 4 out of the 5 of them would be defeated in an instant. At this moment, the square became extremely silent. Everyone stared blankly at Wang Zheng and the other 3 who were lying on the stone platforms. Even Wang Meng's figure was in a sorry state. A crazy roar immediately broke the silence. Wang Meng's eyes were scarlet red and he looked like a crazy demon. The yuan power in his body seemed as if it did not care about his life as it gathered on the long spear that was hovering above him. At this moment, the long spear and the ape's fist were fiercely facing each other. Neither giving way to the other. Yuan, I want you dead. Powerful yuan power poured into the long spear, and a dazzling blue light flashed on the surface of the long spear. Then it suddenly thrust forward. Chapter 85. Complete victory. Sensing the cracks on the fist of the ape shadow, Zhuowen, who was shrouded in the shadow, narrowed his eyes. Soon after, his gaze turned indifferent as he looked at Wang Meng, who was in a sorry state. Crack. Like a spider web, the cracks spread across the ape's body at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the end, the ape let out a mournful roar and turned into a pile of red fragments in front of everyone's eyes. Underneath these fragments was a handsome young man. Whoosh! After the long spear broke through the ape's obstruction, it went straight for Zhuowen's forehead. The powerful force even caused black cracks to appear in the air. Slightly raising his head, the young man's mouth revealed a faint smile. There was not the slightest trace of fear on his face. His lips squirmed as a faint voice slowly spread across the entire square. Looks like you still don't have much awareness. Then I'll make you give up now. Just as his voice faded, the young man suddenly took a step forward. His 5 fingers clenched into fists as surging yuan power gathered in his fists. Streams of dragon-shaped phantoms slowly flowed on the surface of his fists. Primeval Dragon Roar Fist. 9 dragons roar. A cold low roar came from the young man's throat. Then thunderous dragon roars suddenly sounded out in the entire square. Everyone in the square was shocked to discover that 9 dazzling 5-clawed golden dragons had suddenly drilled out from behind the young man's frail body. The surging power turned into invisible ripples that spread across the entire stone platform. Even the hard stone platform was now like tofu, breaking apart inch by inch. Bang! The long spear that was like a pillar that supported the heavens finally arrived in front of Zhuowen. Finally, it fiercely collided with the 9 5-clawed golden dragons. A dazzling light that was as bright as the sun suddenly erupted from the stone platform and spread out, enveloping the entire square in light. Everyone could not help but cover their eyes. Rumble! The deafening sound immediately entered everyone's ears, but the intense light made it impossible for many people to open their eyes. They could only rely on their hearing to imagine the final result of the violent collision in their minds. When the light gradually faded away, what appeared in front of everyone was a ruined square. At this time, the ground within 100 miles of the Godstone Square had completely collapsed, revealing the soft soil underneath. The messy scene caused everyone to suck in a breath of air. The Godstone Square was hundreds of miles wide, but such a vast square had now turned into a mess of ruins. How much power was needed to create such a scene? Everyone found it hard to believe that such a scene was caused by 2 juniors. When they thought of this, everyone's eyes focused on the 2 figures that were still standing at opposite ends of the ruins. The 2 figures were in a somewhat miserable state. Their clothes were somewhat tattered, and traces of blood flowed out from their exposed skin. Wang Meng, you've lost. The young man standing at the left gently wiped the bloodstains on his hand and said with a rather calm expression. Although this voice was very soft, it was still heard clearly by many people. Immediately, everyone turned around and their eyes gathered on the other figure that was in an even more miserable state. At this time, this figure clenched his fists, and his eyes were filled with fear and unwillingness. When the young man's voice fell, this rather burly figure suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. The clothes on the surface of his body were instantly torn, and a thick blood mist erupted from his body. His aura was dispirited, and he fell to the ground, smashing a small hole in the ruins. As this burly figure fell, the entire square fell into a dead silence. Countless gazes gathered on the blood-stained figure that fell straight down, and their mouths slowly opened. Bang! The teacup in Zhuo Xiangding's hand suddenly shattered. His gaze was somewhat dazed as he stared at the figure that was still standing proudly. Traces of tears could not help but swirl in his eyes. We won. We actually won in the end. Zhuo Xiangding laughed somewhat crazily. After so many years, their Zhuo family had finally obtained victory in the city square battle. Moreover, it was a victory achieved through the resurrection battle. Everyone knew how important this victory was. The Zhuo family members behind Zhuo Xiangding also regained their senses. Then, sharp cheers suddenly erupted on the platform. All of the Zhuo family members' faces were flushed red, and their gazes were filled with worship as they looked at the figure in the middle of the square. Their mouths were madly shouting the simple yet extraordinary name of Zhuowen. Zhuowen! Zhuowen! The sullen feelings that the Zhuo family members had been suppressing for many years were gradually vented in this moment as they shouted the name Zhuowen. The momentum was also becoming more and more intense. The old host also gradually recovered from his absent-mindedness. His gaze was deep as he looked at the figure in front of him. Then, his vigorous voice suddenly spread throughout the entire square. In the resurrection battle, the Zhuo family has won. In this city square battle, the final victory belongs to the Zhuo family. The moment the old host's vigorous voice rang out, an uproar instantly rang out. Everyone in the square stood up and waved their hands madly. They even followed the Zhuo family members and shouted the name Zhuowen. The sound of their voices rising and falling was deafening in the entire square. A mighty wind blew past, blowing the youth's blood-stained hair. A trace of a tranquil smile appeared on the youth's face. Just like that, he quietly stood in the middle of the ruins, enjoying the wild cheers of countless people. Everyone in the square knew that this figure would leave an extremely deep impression in their hearts. Many years later, they might not be able to forget this tall and tranquil figure. In this kind of environment, this figure was undoubtedly filled with an irresistible charm. Many young girls in the square stared at this figure with extraordinary splendor in their eyes. On the platform, Gu Yu's jade-like hand lightly covered her cherry lips. There was a trace of unconcealable fluctuation in her beautiful eyes. Even she did not expect that Zhuowen would win the resurrection battle in the end. Looking at the blood-stained figure, for some reason, her heart suddenly beat a few times. A trace of crimson like a ripe apple slowly emerged on her delicate face. Beside Gu Yu, Master Karaki's face revealed a gratified smile. Obviously, he was quite satisfied with Zhuowen's performance. Menger! A furious voice suddenly rang out from the platform. Then, an unfathomable figure suddenly whooshed into the square and helped the unconscious Wang Meng up. This person was the head of the Wang family, Wang Yuanxing. Gently pinching Wang Meng's wrist, Wang Yuanxing's expression became somewhat gloomy. Then he checked Wang Zheng and the other three one by one. When he found that there were not too many injuries, he sighed in relief. Although Wang Zheng and the other three's injuries were not too serious, Wang Meng's injuries were much more serious. If his injuries were a little more serious, Wang Meng's martial path would have been crippled. What a vicious junior! I didn't expect you to be so heavy-handed. Today, this old man will take the place of the Zhuo family to teach you a lesson, you bastard. Wang Yuanxing suddenly turned his head, his expression sinister as he looked at the youth not far away. Then, under everyone's astonished gaze, his figure flashed, his whole body like a vigorous ape, and his entire body rushed straight towards Zhuowen. His palm was extremely surging with yuan power. No one had expected Wang Yuanxing to take action just like that. Moreover, it was against a member of the younger generation. During the competition, Wang Yuanxing had clearly said that the elders could not interfere in the market square battle. Now that the market square battle had ended, he actually took revenge without saying anything. This caused many people to look at Wang Yuanxing with strange gazes. Zhuowen's expression turned cold as he gazed at Wang Yuanxing, who was rapidly approaching him. He was able to sense the extremely powerful surging yuan energy within Wang Yuanxing's body. The might of the yuan energy was simply not something he could withstand. Even he did not expect Wang Yuanxing, this old fart, to turn hostile just like that. His skin was already thick to a certain extent. Wang Yuanxing, you old fart. Chapter 86. Gulong Island Expressway. The square fell into a dead silence. Everyone's eyes were focused on the square. In the square, Zhuo Xiangding and Wang Yuanxing were facing each other from a distance. Both of them were faintly exuding a terrifying aura. This aura had far surpassed that of everyone present. The two of them were the two clan heads of the three big clans. They could be considered the top fighters in Rattan Armor City. Their tit-for-tat naturally attracted the attention of many people. Whoosh! Whoosh! A few more whooshing sounds were heard. Zhuo Baitian and Zhuo Dingtian, who were on the Zhuo family's platform, rushed into the field, looking at Wang Yuanxing with vigilance. Three middle-aged men also came from the Wang family's platform and stood behind Wang Yuanxing, eyeing Zhuo Xiangding with hostility. On the platform, Chen Shang's eyes flickered as he looked at the arena. A gloating smile appeared on his face. The face of the old man in charge immediately turned gloomy when he saw the two families facing each other from a distance. Just as he was about to step forward to stop the two of them, a voice transmission was suddenly transmitted into his ears. His eyes immediately turned towards the platform of the city lord's mansion. On the platform, a middle-aged man with white hair slowly stood up. His eyes glanced indifferently at the old man. The old host hesitated for a moment before bowing to one of them. His figure flashed and returned to the platform. He stood behind this person without saying a word. The actions of the hosting old man also attracted the attention of quite a number of people. When everyone saw the old man standing respectfully behind a blue-clothed man, a trace of astonishment appeared in their eyes. Zhuo Xiangding's gaze also converged on the blue-clothed man. His face was first startled, but soon after, a trace of reverence appeared on his face. Zhuowen had also sensed Zhuo Xiangding's abnormal behavior. His gaze was also focused on the blue-clothed man. He knew that the person who could make Zhuo Xiangding reveal such an expression definitely had a high status in the city lord's mansion. The middle-aged man's face was rather dignified. There was a trace of wrinkles on his forehead. His face was mature and handsome. He must have been a handsome young master when he was young. However, what made Zhuowen frown was that there was an unfriendly gaze directed at him from beside the middle-aged man. Turning his gaze, Zhuowen suddenly realized that Gu Shang had unknowingly stood beside the middle-aged man, and was looking at him with a ferocious expression. Zhuowen's heart sank. He knew that this middle-aged man with a high status had a close relationship with Gu Shang. With Gu Shang's nature of Gu Shang's mansion, he would not let the Zhuo family easily. Father! Gu Shang! Gu Shang looked at Zhuowen in the arena. Gu Shang! Gu Shang! Gu Shang! Gu Shang! Gu Shang's is Zhuowen. For some unknown reason, he would feel extremely displeased every time he saw Zhuowen's calm as water expression. Adding on the fact that he had suffered a great loss at the hands of Zhuowen the last time, his hatred for Zhuowen had become even denser. Although he was a little surprised that Zhuowen had successfully challenged the revival battle, the person in charge of this market battle was his father. So what if Zhuowen had successfully challenged the revival battle? The final decision was in the hands of his father. So what if he has won? At times, an individual's strength is useless. Only a powerful faction can decide everything. Zhuowen, since you have offended me, Gu Shang, you can forget about having an easy time. Gu Shang's gaze was dark and cold as it swept over Zhuowen. He quietly said in his heart. The middle-aged man glanced at Gu Shang. His gaze immediately focused on the young figure in the arena. His somewhat magnetic voice slowly spread throughout the entire arena. I am the person in charge of this market battle, Gu Lai. There is no need for your two clans to argue now. I will make a decision later. Gu Lai's words immediately caused an uproar. From his tone, Gu Lai's words were very courteous. However, it was obvious that the Zhuo family had won the market battle this time. Yet, Gu Lai said that he would make a decision later. These words were clearly biased towards the Wang clan. Zhuo Xiangding's expression sunk slightly. He did not expect that not only did Gu Lai not announce that the Zhuo family was the victor this time, but he was also stalling for time. At this moment, Wang Yuanxing, who was standing in front of Zhuo Xiangding, had a respectful expression as he cupped his hands towards Gu Lai. He said, although the Zhuo family's Zhuowen has won the revival battle this time, this person's heart is vicious and his methods are vicious. Every move he makes is aimed at a vital spot. If such a vicious and merciless person becomes the champion of the market battle, I'm afraid that it will go against the principles of the market battle. I hope that Sir Gu Lai can be impartial. Wang Yuanxing's words immediately caused the members of the Zhuo family to hiss. Quite a number of people stared at him with furious gazes. They did not expect that Wang Yuanxing, the head of the Wang clan, would act so disgustingly. The battle originally had some injuries, but in Wang Yuanxing's words, it became vicious and merciless. However, what caused everyone to be taken aback was that Gu Lai actually nodded his head in a serious manner. His tone was rather solemn as he said, "The words of the head of the Wang clan are reasonable. Although Zhuowen has won the market battle, his methods are too vicious. How about this? The rules of the market battle cannot be abolished. Since Zhuowen has won the revival battle, then the Zhuo family will naturally be this time's champion. However, because Zhuowen's methods are too vicious, the wager between the two clans will not be counted. There should be no objections to this arrangement, right?" Gu Lai's expression was rather calm. His face was filled with indifference. "Gotcha." Zhuo Xiangding clenched his fists so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. His eyes were blood-red as he stared at Gu Lai, who was on the platform. Everyone knew that his words were biased towards the Wang clan. The Zhuo family did not fight to the death in the market battle for a mere title. It was clear that the Wang clan had already lost the 10 market battles to the Zhuo family. Now Gu Lai wanted to cancel the wager of the 10 market battles with just a few words. Anyone who heard this would be extremely furious. Standing behind Zhuo Xiangding, Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and stared closely at Gu Lai's figure on the platform. He knew that Gu Lai was making things difficult for him this time because of Gu Shang. He also did not think that the city lord's actions would be so tyrannical. With just a few words, they wanted to strip the Zhuo family of the market battle rights that they deserved. Wang Yuanxing stared at the Zhuo family with a mocking expression. Finally, his gaze focused on Zhuowen at the back. He crossed his arms and said indifferently, "Actually, it's not impossible to transfer the market battle rights to the Zhuo family. However, the condition is that Zhuowen has to kneel down and apologize to Meng and break one of his arms. As long as he kneels down and apologizes and breaks one of his arms, the Wang clan will immediately hand over the market battle rights to the Zhuo family." At this point, Wang Yuanxing's eyes looked meaningfully at the young figure standing behind Zhuo Xiangding. Zhuo Xiangding glared angrily and shouted coldly, "Wang Yuanxing, you old bastard! The Wang clan is really something. Even at this juncture, you still dare to deny it. No wonder you're the #1 clan in Rotan Armor City. Let me tell you, if you want Zhuowen to apologize, don't even think about it. Since you don't plan to give it to us, the Zhuo family will take it by force." As Zhuo Xiangding spoke, a strong wave of origin energy exploded from his body. This wave of origin energy was like a vast ocean, spreading throughout the entire plaza. Many people trembled under this wave of origin energy and could not stand steadily. With the eruption of Zhuo Xiangding, Zhuo Baitian and Zhuo Dingtian behind him also erupted with strong yuan qi. Moreover, there was a blazing yang qi drifting out from their bodies. This was the unique aura of a corporeal yang martial artist. Corporeal yang realm? I didn't expect the Zhuo family to have another corporeal yang warrior. No wonder you dare to talk about taking it by force. Wang Yuanxing's pupils shrank as he looked at Zhuo Dingtian and sneered. But do you think the Zhuo family is the only one developing? The Wang clan is also developing. We have more corporeal yang warriors than the Zhuo family. As he spoke, Wang Yuanxing did not want to be outdone and exploded with an aura that was not weaker than Zhuo Xiangding's. The 3 people behind him also exploded with auras that were not weaker than corporeal yang warriors. Obviously, these 3 people were also corporeal yang warriors. Zhuo Xiangding's face suddenly darkened. The reason why the Wang clan was ranked first among the 3 great clans was that they had one more corporeal yang warrior than the other 2 clans. Originally, Zhuo Xiangding thought that the Zhuo family had one more corporeal young warrior after Zhuo Dingtian's promotion. Therefore, he took it for granted that with his current strength, he was not afraid of the Wang clan. However, he did not expect the Wang clan to also have a corporeal young warrior. This made Zhuo Xiangding's face even more gloomy. The Wang clan had one more corporeal young warrior than the Zhuo family. If they fought, the Zhuo family would undoubtedly be at a disadvantage. The commotion between the two clans also attracted the attention of everyone in the square. Everyone's eyes were filled with a fiery passion as they stared at the two clans that were ready to fight. A clash between the two top factions in Rotan Armor City was a rare sight. On the platform of the city lord's mansion, Gu Lai looked at the Zhuo family with an unhappy expression and said coldly, "Your Zhuo family is quite bold. Without the permission of the city lord's mansion, you actually dare to rob. It seems like you don't put the city lord's mansion in your eyes." As he spoke, an aura that pressured the entire place erupted from Gu Lai's body. Two auras that were a mixture of red and white were gradually born from within his body. They transformed into a scorching sun that alternated between red and white. The powerful aura caused everyone to not dare to carelessly make a sound. The power of yin and yang fusion. He is actually a corporeal king realm warrior. This lord has actually advanced to the corporeal king realm. There was an uproar in the square. Everyone looked at the blue figure standing quietly on the platform in shock. It should be known that even the heads of the three big clans had not advanced to the corporeal king realm. At most, they were only half a step into the corporeal king realm. The person in charge sent by the city lord's mansion was actually a corporeal king realm warrior that far surpassed the heads of the three big clans. This made everyone deeply feel the depth of the city lord's mansion's foundation. Just as Gu Lai was about to attack the Zhuo family, another equally powerful aura exploded on the platform. This aura was like a gentle stream of water that filled the entire square. It immediately offset the pressure that Gu Lai created. "Brother Gu Lai, you have gone a little overboard. Zhuoan is my disciple. I hope you can give me face and let the Zhuo family go." Chapter 87. Chapter 87 Have a falling out. This Zhuoan does have some ability. He actually won the resurrection battle. However, he's still too weak for me. If he were a little stronger, he would be qualified to be my opponent. At the top of a magnificent building, the white-clothed young man glanced at the distant god stone square with an indifferent expression and spoke in an indifferent manner. "That is indeed the case. However, this child's talent is not inferior to yours. After all, he seems to be only 15 years old." The purple-robed man standing beside the white-robed young man said calmly with a gentle smile on his face, "I admit this kid's talent, but the square is quite lively now. From the looks of it, it seems like the Wang family doesn't want to admit it. Even Uncle Gu Lai is partial to the Wang family. I wonder how the Zhuo family will deal with this?" The young man in white smiled and looked at the god stone square in the distance with interest. "Haha, Gu Lai isn't siding with the Wang family. He just wants to intimidate the Zhuo family. I heard that his son Gu Shang was beaten up by that brat Zhuoan. He probably wants to vent his anger for his son." The purple-clothed man narrowed his eyes as he looked towards the direction of the Godstone Plaza with a smile. "So it's that silk pants Gu Shang. I really don't know how Uncle Gu Lai, with his illustrious reputation, could give birth to such a trash. Father, Uncle Gu Lai's actions seem to be against the city lord's mansion's style. Aren't you going to mediate?" The purple-clothed man laughed and said, "Gu Lai is the most protective. Moreover, he dotes on Gu Shang, his only son, a lot. I had already expected something like this to happen. However, Grandmaster Kuraki is currently at the Divine Stone Plaza. I presume Gu Lai won't act rashly. Let's just watch the show for now." On the Godstone Plaza, Gu Lai looked at Grandmaster Kuraki in front of him with some fear. He said in a deep voice, "Grandmaster Kuraki, the insignificant Zhuo family actually dares to offend the dignity of our city lord's residence. If we don't teach them a lesson, they won't be able to convince the masses. I hope Grandmaster won't stop this Gu." Master Kuraki smiled, but his slightly curved eyes were cold. He said faintly, "This old man hasn't accepted a disciple for a long time. Now that I've finally met a talented one, Do you think I'll let you teach my disciples' family a lesson? Grandmaster Tsangmu, are you really not planning on stepping aside? Gu Lai narrowed his eyes and asked in a low voice. Grandmaster Kuraki did not say anything else. However, the rich mental energy on his body was like a cheetah that was ready to pounce. The mental energy that was faintly revealed was somewhat terrifying. If it were to explode, it would not be a joke. Gu Lai's eyes narrowed slightly. Although his cultivation had already reached the Light King realm, Grandmaster Kuraki was a bona fide rank 3 Arcana Master. He was no weaker than him. Moreover, what Gu Lai feared the most was the endless methods of Arcana Masters, as well as the various powerful origin crystals. Even if he were to face Grandmaster Kuraki, it would be difficult for him to do so. Taking a deep look at Grandmaster Kuraki, Gu Lai grinned and said, "Since Grandmaster Kuraki has said so, I'll give you some face. However, I hope you won't interfere in the enmity between the Wang family and the Zhou family. Otherwise, I won't just stand by and watch." After saying that, Gu Lai waved his sleeves and returned to his seat. His face was as calm as water. No one knew what he was thinking right now. Gu Shang unwillingly glanced at the young figure in the middle of the field. In the end, he could only return to his seat dejectedly. He knew that since Grandmaster Kuraki had already stepped forward, it was impossible for his father to deal with the Zhou family. Even if father doesn't interfere, the Wang family's foundation is enough to greatly damage the Zhou family. Their goal is the same. Gu Shang thought darkly in his heart. Gu Yu frowned slightly as she glanced at Gu Shang and Gu Lai. She also knew that the two of them were deliberately targeting the Zhou family. However, she couldn't get a word in edgewise. Although she was the daughter of the city lord, Gu Shang's father, Gu Lai's position in the city lord's mansion was only second to her own father. Even if she pleaded for mercy, it wouldn't be of much use. This was also why she had remained silent from the beginning. In the field, the Zhou and Wang families also noticed the scene on the platform of the city lord's mansion. Wang Yuanqing's face revealed a trace of regret when he realized that Gu Lai didn't interfere because of Grandmaster Kuraki. However, a trace of ferocity soon appeared on his face. In his opinion, even if Gu Lai didn't interfere, the Wang family could easily defeat the Zhou family. After all, the Wang family had one more Yang realm warrior than the Zhou family. Wang Yuanqing lightly glanced at Zhuowen, who was standing behind Zhuo Xiangding and the other two. He then whispered to a middle-aged man behind him, "When the battle with the Zhou family starts, secretly get rid of that brat Zhuowen. This brat's talent is truly terrifying. If we don't get rid of him now, there will be no end of trouble in the future." After speaking, Wang Yuanqing smiled sinisterly at Zhuo Xiangding and said, "Head of the Zhou family, if you really want to obtain the management rights of the 10 markets, then let us fight. If you can win against us, the wager will still belong to the Zhou family." Zhuo Xiangding and the other two's faces immediately became incomparably angry. Wang Yuanqing was too thick-skinned. The wager originally belonged to the Zhou family, but now it was being used as a wager again. How could such an action not make the Zhou family angry? Attack! Wang Yuanqing could also see that Grandmaster Tsangmu was being held back by Gu Lai, so it was impossible for him to deal with the Wang clan. Therefore, he was fearless at this moment. With a cold shout, the person in the lead emitted a dense yuan power, and his entire body shot towards Zhuo Xiangding like an arrow leaving the bow. Bang! Powerful yuan power undulations were like huge waves in the ocean, spreading throughout the entire plaza. Many weaker fighters could not help but retreat under this undulation. Boom! Wang Yuanqing and Zhuo Xiangding finally collided like two magnets. A violent explosion occurred at the point where their fists and palms collided. The gravel on the ground turned into powder under the explosive impact and drifted away. While Zhuo Xiangding and Wang Yuanqing were fighting, Zhuo Dingtian and Zhuo Baitian were also fighting with the other two middle-aged men of the Wang family. Surging yuan qi constantly spread out, causing a destructive force that far exceeded the level of Zhuo Xiangding and Wang Meng. If it weren't for the experts from the city lord's mansion maintaining the defensive measures of the entire field, there would probably be some casualties in the field. Zhuowen also looked at the three battlefields in horror. This was the first time he had seen a battle between warriors above the corporeal Yang realm. However, he also knew that he shouldn't stay here for long. Just as Zhuo Wen was about to leave the field, Xiao Hei's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Zhuo Wen, be careful behind you. An ominous premonition arose in Zhuo Wen's mind. Then, without thinking, he suddenly punched behind him. Second Sky of Rampage. Primeval Dragon Roar Fist. 9 Dragons Roar. A low roar came out of his mouth. Then, his muscles were suddenly enveloped in a red light. The ape shadow behind him appeared again. The moment the ape's shadow appeared, 9 giant 5-clawed golden dragons surged out of its body and rushed behind it. Boom! Zhuo Wen only felt a trace of a huge force coming from behind him. Then, he was shocked to find that the huge ape shadow was suddenly punched through by a fist. The ape shadow just let out a sad cry and immediately dissipated. Rumble! The fist didn't stop there. With an oppressive force, it once again slammed into the 9 5-clawed golden dragons. A dazzling light suddenly exploded. Zhuo Wen was shocked to discover that the powerful 5-clawed golden dragons were actually crumbling inch by inch under this fist-like paper. Only the 9th dragon slightly blocked this fist. However, it only blocked it for a while before it disappeared with a sad cry. Puff! Zhuo Wen immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Because of this huge force, he was sent flying. After rolling on the ground for more than 10 meters, the tip of his foot pushed off the ground and his feet slammed into the ground. It wasn't until he drew another 10 meters in the ground that he was able to withstand the aftermath of the huge force. Zhuo Wen's right hand gently covered his chest. Now he only felt a burning pain in his chest. Moreover, every breath he took was accompanied by a trace of pain. Obviously, his lungs had suffered some damage. Unexpectedly, you were able to block my attack. No wonder you were able to challenge the resurrection battle successfully. A rather cold voice slowly entered Zhuo Wen's ears. He looked up and saw a middle-aged man with a cold expression standing more than 10 meters away, coldly looking at him. Zhuo Wen recognized that this middle-aged man was one of the 3 young corporeal realm warriors standing behind Wang Yuanxing. Thinking of this, Zhuo Wen's heart suddenly became gloomy. His strength had just reached the Yin Void realm. Facing a young corporeal realm warrior was simply like striking a stone with an egg. He had no chance of winning. Zhuo Wen's battle immediately attracted the attention of other people in the square. When they saw that Zhuo Wen's opponent was actually a genuine young corporeal realm warrior, the square was suddenly in an uproar. Just now, I saw with my own eyes that the Wang family's young corporeal realm warrior intended to sneak an attack on Zhuo Wen. However, he didn't succeed. Moreover, Zhuo Wen even took a blow from him. What? Zhuo Wen actually took a blow from that young corporeal realm warrior. He is only in the Yin Void realm, but he can actually take a blow from a young corporeal realm warrior. Indeed, but that blow was obviously not easy to take. Zhuo Wen is now injured and in a very bad state. The uproar in the square grew louder and louder. Many people were filled with righteous indignation and began to curse the Wang family for being despicable and shameless. They actually used a young corporeal realm warrior to bully a warrior who had just reached the Yin Void realm. On the platform, looking at the injured young figure in the square, Master Kuraki could no longer remain calm. He slammed the tea table and was about to save Zhuo Wen. However, the moment Master Kuraki stood up, a powerful aura suddenly came from not far away. Then, a blue figure stood in front of Master Kuraki. It was also because Rattan Armor City had Grandmaster Karaki's presence that a small city like Rattan Armor City could be very prosperous. Guyu's pretty face also changed drastically. Many of the defensive formations in Rattan Armor City were created by Grandmaster Karaki. It was because of these defensive formations that Rattan Armor City was impregnable. If Grandmaster Karaki really left, then Rattan Armor City's defenses would definitely drop by a level. By then, it was very likely that other cities that were eyeing Rattan Armor City covetously would take advantage of the situation to invade. Uncle Gulai, don't you understand? Zhuo Wen's mental power talent is very powerful. Even Grandmaster Karaki thinks highly of him. If our city lord's mansion does our best to rope in such a talent, then Rattan Armor City will have another powerful arcanist in the future. By then, Rattan Armor City can completely develop into a mid-level city. Guyu was also a little anxious at this moment. She hurriedly tried to persuade Gu Lai. At this moment, Gu Lai's face was extremely gloomy. Originally, he thought that Zhuowen was only a disciple that Grandmaster Kuraki had casually taken in. He was not valued at all, so he did not care about Zhuowen. However, he had not expected such a strong reaction from Grandmaster Kuraki. He knew better than anyone how important Grandmaster Kuraki was to Rattan Armor City, so he was a little hesitant right now. Just as Gu Lai was hesitating, Gu Shang's face was a little anxious. He was determined to kill Zhuowen today, so he used a voice that only the two of them could hear behind Gu Lai and said, "Father, Zhuowen must be eliminated. He must have seen what you did just now. If we let him develop with his vicious methods, I'm afraid he won't forgive us easily. At that time we'll be in trouble." Gu Lai was stunned. Then a trace of viciousness flashed through his eyes. He clasped his hands at Grandmaster Kuraki and said, "Grandmaster Kuraki, this is a matter between the Zhua and Wang families after all. It's best that outsiders like us don't get involved. If you're determined to get involved, then I can only offend you." Guyu was stunned. Then she angrily said, "Uncle Gu Lai, you'll regret this. Gu Lai, I really didn't think that you'd be so short-sighted. You want to kill Zhuowen just to vent your anger for your son. Since you're in the way, I won't be able to do anything. However, I think you'll regret this." Grandmaster Kuraki's face was extremely cold as he glanced at Gu Lai. Then, his eyes that were filled with coldness slowly gathered on Gu Shang behind him. A trace of a cruel smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Gu Lai's cultivation had already entered the Zhao King realm. If the two of them were to fight, it would be very difficult to determine the victor in a short amount of time. Moreover, Grandmaster Kuraki knew that Zhuowen had some trump cards. For example, the rank 2 origin crystal, the mysterious turtle shell, that he gifted to Zhuowen last time. Therefore, he didn't believe that Zhuowen would die so easily. However, the anger in his heart made Grandmaster Kuraki very displeased. After all, no one would feel good when they saw their disciple being beaten up. Right now, he was only waiting for the city lord, Guyu Tian, to arrive. Such a big matter had happened in the market battle this time. Guyu Tian definitely knew about it. When the time came, even Gu Lai wouldn't be able to do anything. In the arena, Zhuowen crawled up from the ground in a rather sorry state. At this moment, his entire body was covered with hideous wounds. Drops of blood continuously flowed out from his wounds. It was an abnormally terrifying sight. On the other hand, although Zhuo Xiangding and the others were very worried about Zhuowen, the three of them were already entangled with the people from the Wang family. They couldn't free themselves to help Zhuowen at all. They could only watch as Zhuowen was suppressed by the middle-aged man. After letting out a light breath, Zhuowen nimbly retrieved an origin-gathering pill from his Chenkuan bag and threw it into his mouth. As he felt his origin power slowly recover, his heart gradually calmed down. However, his eyes were unusually vigilant as he stared at the middle-aged man not far in front of him. This was the 5th time he had been sent flying by the middle-aged man. If it weren't for the body-tempering effects of the violent blood beast body and the origin-gathering pill's replenishment, as well as the soul skill's undying essence, he wouldn't have been able to hold on. Furthermore, the middle-aged man didn't seem to be in a hurry to kill Zhuowen. Every time he attacked Zhuowen, he only used a casual punch to forcefully break Zhuowen's prepared moves. There was a playful smile on his face the entire time. He smiled bitterly. He finally understood the huge gap between the Yin illusory realm and the corporeal Yang realm. Furthermore, he also learned from Xiao He that the middle-aged man in front of him had only just entered the corporeal Yang realm. Even at this level, Zhuowen wasn't his opponent at all. At this moment he also realized that his strength was too weak. "Xiao He, what should we do now? Why don't you lend me your dragon aura again?" Zhuowen was also a little flustered at this moment. He repeatedly asked for Xiao He's opinion. "Brat, this dragon lord's dragon aura is so precious. How can I give it to you just like that? Hasn't the sovereign dragon cauldron in your body already refined the nirvana demon flame? The Nirvana Demon Flame strength is very impressive. If you release all of the Nirvana Demon Flame in the Sovereign Dragon Cauldron, even a corporeal Yang Realm expert would be seriously injured. Xiao Hei's lazy voice was slowly transmitted over. Zhuowen's eyes immediately lit up when he heard this. However, he quickly rejected it. Chapter 89. Release Nirvana Demon Flame. The middle-aged man's eyes abruptly shrunk. His gaze was shocked as he looked at the dark green hidden armor that had appeared in front of him. The hidden armor was as tall as a person. Its surface was covered with crack-like lines. Its outer appearance was very similar to a tortoise shell. The middle-aged man felt as though he had struck an indestructible rock when he struck this strange hidden armor. There was no reaction at all. Moreover, a powerful rebound force gradually spread from the hidden armor to his arms. A muffled groan sounded. The middle-aged man suddenly took over 10 steps back. His toes pressed gently on the ground before he stopped his body. He looked at the young man in front of him in disbelief and cried out sharply, "Tier 2 Yuan Crystal?" Although the middle-aged man's voice was not loud, the people in the square were not weak. All of them had clearly heard the content of the middle-aged man's words. Quite a number of people inhaled a breath of cold air when they heard the words Tier 2 Yuan Crystal. Quite a number of people were not unfamiliar with Yuan crystals. They contained an unbelievable strength within them. Although there were quite a number of Yuan crystals circulating in Vine Armor City, and even the 3 great clans had some Yuan crystal reserves, those were only Tier 1 Yuan crystals. A Tier 1 Yuan crystal was considered an extremely common Yuan crystal. With Grandmaster Tsongmu's Tier 3 Arcana Master Strength, he was able to randomly create many Tier 1 Yuan crystals. However, a Tier 2 Yuan crystal was different. This was because the strength of a Tier 2 Yuan crystal was comparable to a corporeal Yang expert. It was not easy to create such a Yuan crystal. Even Grandmaster Tsongmu had a high failure rate when creating a Tier 2 Yuan crystal. It was because of this extremely high failure rate that it was extremely difficult to see a shadow of a Tier 2 Yuan crystal in Vine Armor City. If there was one, it would only exist on Grandmaster Tsongmu. Now that Zhuowen was able to take out a Tier 2 Yuan crystal all of a sudden, it naturally caused quite a number of people to feel uncertain. However, when they recalled that Zhuowen was Grandmaster Tsongmu's disciple, quite a number of people felt some relief in their hearts. It is unexpected that Grandmaster is so generous. He is even willing to give out a Tier 2 Yuan crystal. The expression of Gulai on the platform was a little stern. He knew that since even a Tier 2 Yuan crystal was given out, Zhuowen's position in Tsongmu's heart was definitely not low. Moreover, with this Grade 2 origin crystal in hand, it would probably be very difficult to kill Zhuowen. He knew that if Zhuowen did not die this time, Zhuowen would definitely hate him and his son. Thinking of this, Gulai frowned slightly and felt some regret in his heart. After all, the conflict between Zhuowen and Gushang was only a small conflict. Now that he had dealt with it in such a way, it had instantly intensified the conflict. Grandmaster Kuraki ignored Gulai. Instead, he looked at the arena with a grave expression. He knew that the Grade 2 Essence Crystal Black Tortoiseshell could only block 3 attacks from a corporeal Yang cultivator. After that, it would lose its effect. At that time, Zhuowen would still be in a bad situation. In the arena, the middle-aged man rubbed his slightly numb wrist and sinisterly said, "I didn't think that you would actually have something like a 2nd grade Yuan crystal on you. No wonder you've been so calm from the beginning. However, I think that this 2nd grade Yuan crystal also has a certain limit. Once this limit is broken, the Yuan crystal will naturally not be able to protect you." Zhuowen did not reply. His face was as calm as water. His right hand touched between his eyebrows. Immediately, 9 sword shadows flew out and swept towards the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man curled the corners of his mouth and casually knocked down the 9 sword shadows. He said somewhat carelessly, "Boy, your attack is too weak. The gap between the Yin Void realm and the corporeal Yang realm is not something you can imagine. If you know what's good for you, it's best that you hand over the Grade 2 Essence Crystal in your hand and surrender. Perhaps I can leave you with an intact corpse." Moreover, before the middle-aged man finished speaking, he suddenly saw the youth not far from him. The youth's right hand touched between his eyebrows again. Then the shadow of a broken three-legged cauldron suddenly drilled out. At the same time, a strange burning sensation suddenly rose in the entire space. Feeling the sudden burning sensation in the air, the middle-aged man's pupils suddenly shrank. This was because he could feel that the strange burning sensation was coming from the youth who had a strange smile on his face. More accurately, it was coming from the broken cauldron in the youth's hand. This kind of burning sensation? The middle-aged man suddenly felt a little dry in his mouth and tongue. Moreover, an impatient feeling rose in his heart for no reason, making him want to vent it. Boom! The bottom of the cauldron had 3 spouts. The youth's right hand lightly touched the bottom of the cauldron. Suddenly, a jet of black flame suddenly erupted from the 3 spouts. Finally, it slowly gathered at the top of the cauldron. If someone paid attention, they would notice that the black flame gathered at the top of the cauldron had a faint shape of a skull. Swish! As soon as the black flame appeared outside the cauldron, it seemed to be able to burn the air. It made a piercing sound, like the wailing of ghosts and the howling of wolves. It gave people a hair-raising feeling. An even hotter feeling spread throughout the entire air. The originally cool and refreshing plaza suddenly became unbearably hot. Moreover, this kind of hot temperature continued to rise. The ground even began to dry up and crack. Waves of transparent heat continued to spread, causing one's vision to become somewhat blurry. Everyone's attention in the square was attracted by the movement on Zhuowen's side. One by one, they turned their eyes to Zhuowen's side. Zhuo Xiangding, Wang Yuanxing, and the other 5 people who were originally fighting against each other also couldn't help but turn their eyes to Zhuowen's side because of the sudden heat in the square. When everyone saw a very strange black flame floating in front of Zhuowen, the square suddenly fell into a moment of silence. It was as if many people couldn't recognize the black flame released by Zhuowen at this time. This is impossible. How can this bastard Zhuowen have this kind of thing? Wang Shua, hurry up and leave. Zhuowen is in danger now. Wang Yuanxing's pupils suddenly shrank as he stared at the flame. Then, as if he had thought of something, he hurriedly shouted at the middle-aged man standing in front of Zhuowen. After saying that, Wang Yuanxing wanted to fly over. However, how could Zhuo Xiangding let him leave so easily? He blocked Wang Yuanxing's path and said with an indifferent expression, "Wang Yuanxing, your opponent is me. Don't even think about leaving." Originally, Zhuo Xiangding was very worried about Zhuowen's safety. When he was fighting with Wang Yuanxing, he would occasionally pay attention to Zhuowen in the square. It was only when he found out that Zhuowen actually had a second-grade crystal that he secretly let out a sigh of relief. And now Zhuowen had created a strange black flame. Although Zhuo Xiangding didn't know the origin of the black flame, from Wang Yuanxing's ugly expression and the strange power contained in the black flame, this thing was very unusual. Now that Zhuowen was in the process of using it, how could he let Wang Yuanxing ruin it? Zhuo Xiangding, you old bastard, do you know what that thing is? Once that thing touches you, it will not stop until you die. If anything happens to Wang Shua, your Zhuo family will suffer the revenge of our Wang family. Wang Yuanxing was anxious, but he was helpless because Zhuo Xiangding's strength was on par with his. He simply couldn't help Wang Shua, who didn't know what was going on. Wang Yuanxing, we have long been enemies with your Wang family. Do you think this old man will be afraid of your Wang family's revenge? Zhuo Xiangding laughed and suddenly urged Yuan Li to fiercely hit Wang Yuanxing with his palm. On the platform, Master Kuraki suddenly crushed the teacup in his hand. His eyes were somewhat dull as he looked at the black flame in front of Zhuowen. His mouth unconsciously opened wide. Where did this little guy get this thing? It seems that the black flame is actually under his control. How is this possible? How did he do it? In the square, the middle-aged man named Wang Shua naturally heard Wang Yuanxing's exclamation. Moreover, he could also feel that the black flame in the hands of the young man in front of him was somewhat terrifying. Looking up, he found that the young man was still holding the round cauldron in his hands. At the bottom of the round cauldron, the black flame was constantly rising, gathering more and more at the top, and the power was also becoming more and more terrifying. Although I don't know what this kid is doing, I can't let him continue using it. However, I can't let him continue to use it. Otherwise, I'm afraid that it will be really bad. Wang Shua made a prompt decision. His legs slammed into the ground, and the powerful force caused the ground to crack. Immediately, his whole body flew towards Zhuowen like an arrow released from a bow. This kid is a little strange. This time I will not hold back. I must kill this kid. Thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind, but Wang Shua's movements were not slow. Wang Shua's hand suddenly changed a few seals in front of his chest, and powerful Yuan Li immediately gathered towards his hands. After a while, a golden light seal was formed in the middle of his palms. Earth rank mid-level armor skill. Golden stone seal. A low roar came from his throat. Wang Shua's right hand suddenly formed a seal, and the golden light seal suddenly turned into a huge golden stone platform in the air. The golden stone platform was like a mountain, and it fiercely suppressed the motionless figure in the same place. Boom! An intense sound like the collapse of a mountain suddenly erupted. The entire square trembled at this moment, and many people stared blankly as the huge golden stone platform enveloped Zhuowen's small and skinny figure. Before the crowd could regain their senses, a rather calm voice slowly sounded from below the huge golden stone platform. You're called Wang Shua, right? To be able to force me to use such a trump card. I really don't know if it's your misfortune or my fortune. However, regardless of whether you're lucky or not, you're going to die today. When the last word die left his mouth, a strange black flame immediately enveloped the entire golden stone platform. Immediately after, under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, the golden stone platform that was several hundred feet tall was actually completely engulfed by the black flame in the blink of an eye. In the end, it turned into nothingness. Puff! A mouthful of blood suddenly spat out from Wang Shua's mouth. At this moment, his face had become extremely pale. Looking at the golden stone platform that was instantly swallowed up, there was a trace of fear in his eyes. This was his strongest move, and it actually couldn't withstand the strange black flame for a breath's time before it was completely burned up. Ding ding dang. Chapter 90. Terrifying black flame. The endless black flame shrouded Zhuowen's thin figure, but it didn't seem to affect him at all. He held the cauldron in his hand and slowly walked forward. Gulp! Wang Shua swallowed his saliva quietly and looked at the looming figure shrouded in the black flame with fear in his eyes. The chill in his heart had reached its peak. Die! A clear and cold voice slowly spread. Immediately, the endless black flames that enveloped the figure immediately transformed into a black skull in the air. Its dark and serene eyes quietly stared at Wang Shua, after which it parted its mouth and emitted a strange and sinister smile. Suddenly it flew towards Wang Shua. Its speed was so fast that it seemed to have teleported. Damn it, you're just a little brat of the Een Void realm. No matter how powerful you are, you can't be my opponent. Suppressing the fear in his heart, Wang Shua made a seal with his hands again. The surging original energy suddenly condensed into a dazzling light seal in his hands. Then with a roar, he suddenly hit the skull with his palm. Boom! The golden stone platform appeared once again and smashed toward the skull with mountain-like power. Jia! The black flame skull let out a sinister laugh. Two pillars of fire were released from its hollow eyes. The golden stone platform was immediately surrounded by the pillars of fire. Under Wang Shua's terrified gaze, the golden stone platform rapidly melted at a speed visible to the naked eye. Puff! Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Wang Shua covered his chest and stared at the approaching black flame skull with fear. Suddenly, he shouted in fear, impossible, you're just a little brat of the Een Void realm. How can you have such powerful strength? A miserable scream rang out, but it quickly came to an abrupt end. The endless black flames instantly swallowed him up. Even though Wang Shua had his life-bound armor, he was still instantly devoured by the strange black flames. In the end, Wang Shua's entire body was reduced to ashes in front of everyone's eyes. Gulp! Swallowing sounds rang out in the square. Everyone's eyes were focused on the figure shrouded in the black flame. They never thought that a powerful warrior of the Yang Void realm would turn into ashes in front of them. Because of Wang Shua's death, The square fell into a long silence. Numerous pairs of eyes stared blankly at the figure within the black flames. No words were spoken, no noise was made. Only the sound of continuous swallowing could be heard from time to time. The black flames slowly faded away, revealing Zhuowen's handsome face. However, Zhuowen's current situation was not good. His face was as pale as snow, and cold sweat dripped down his forehead like rain. The might of the Nirvana demon flame is actually so terrifying that even a corporeal young martial artist is unable to withstand it? Zhuowen muttered to himself with an astonished expression as he looked at Wang Shuo, who had turned into ashes not far away. This Dragon Lord has already said that the strength of the Nirvana demon flame is something that even those at the corporeal yang stage are extremely afraid of. However, the reason why you were able to use the Nirvana demon flame to easily finish off Wang Shuo was because that fellow had just advanced to the corporeal yang stage. He had yet to even form his armor. If he had formed his armor, even the Nirvana demon flame would have difficulty finishing him off. Xiao Hei's lazy voice suddenly rang out in Zhuowen's mind. Armor? Zhuowen asked somewhat uncertainly. Looks like you don't know much about the corporeal yang stage. Let me explain it to you like this. Every stage of a martial artist has a corresponding armor. The Yin illusory stage has a void armor that is agglomerated from dark and cold energy. The corresponding corporeal yang stage requires a corporeal armor that is agglomerated from yang yuan qi. It is also called yang armor. A corporeal armor is agglomerated from yang yuan qi. It has a natural immunity to fire. Moreover, its defensive strength is far higher than a void armor. Therefore, if that fellow earlier had a corporeal armor protecting his body, even the Nirvana demon flame would not have been able to kill him. At the very most, it would have injured him. Zhuowen felt relieved in his heart when he heard this. Although the Nirvana demon flame was powerful, it was not powerful enough to kill a corporeal yang stage martial artist. This time around, he was lucky enough to meet a corporeal yang stage martial artist who had yet to form his armor. If an even stronger corporeal yang stage martial artist were to come over, it would be really difficult for him to deal with him. However, after releasing most of the Nirvana demon flame this time around, there is not much demon flame remaining in the cauldron. Zhuowen said somewhat helplessly as he sized up the weak flame in the fire vent at the bottom of the circular cauldron. After all, the Nirvana demon flame was something that Zhuowen had unintentionally collected. It would be reduced each time it was used. Could not be regenerated like qi. The silence in the open ground only continued for a moment before a crazy uproar immediately surged through the entire open ground. He actually killed Wang Shuo, who was at the corporeal yang stage. This is too unbelievable. This is too crazy. Since when was a Yin void stage martial artist able to kill a corporeal yang stage martial artist? I must be dreaming. The open ground immediately became crazy and chaotic. Disbelieving words and gazes of disbelief continued to spread out amidst the uproar. On the platform, Gu Lai's expression had become extremely gloomy. Although he maintained a calm expression on the surface, his heart was in an uproar. They didn't expect that Zhuo Xiangding, who was half a step away from the Zhao King realm, would be injured in one move. Zhao King realm. Looking at the figure slowly walking out of the smoke and dust, everyone knew that Wang Yuanqing's cultivation had probably reached the Zhao King realm under the effect of the secret technique just now. You killed our Wang family's young corporeal realm warrior, and forced me to use the secret technique bloodlight sacrifice. Zhuo won today. Only your life and the entire Zhuo family can make up for our Wang family's loss. As he spoke, Wang Yuanqing turned into a blood-red line that was hard to see with the naked eye and shot towards Zhuo Wen without any warning. His powerful aura immediately locked onto the figure not far away. At this moment, Zhuo Wen stood in place and couldn't move at all. His body had been locked onto by Wang Yuanqing's aura. This aura was like a huge mountain pressing down on him. This old dog of the Wang family has gone too far. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.